Whipta if I move out of our apartment knowing my fiancé and his mom can't afford it without me, F29, and my ex fiancé, M27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiancé got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple years and then decided to get an MBA, which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiancé is from the Midwest and his mom has always wanted him to move back. When he told her he was staying here she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and international. I love my job, I like the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID my office shut down and we all went WFH. After COVID they decided not to reopen this office, so I've been 100% WFH since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50-50, so the problem started this past May. Fiancé's mom told him she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher so figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that I didn't really mind her staying with us as I figured it would just be for a couple months over the summer. Since I thought it would only be for a couple months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom and fiancé bought a bed to put in the second bedroom. The problem is she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full-time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on Teams calls. She always asks me to take her places BC she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making fiancé help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down. And I hate having my office shoved in a corner of the bedroom. Back in September I told my fiancé that since it looks like his mom is going to stay a while we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use, so finally he said we could do a 50-50 split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation he says he agrees but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mom. And he won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting him mom on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay my part of rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal but I'm not a big spender so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mom aren't able to pay for 1/3 the rent each, there is no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do, but I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the AH for leaving them like this. Comments. Commenter 1. His mom is the biggest A because she specifically planned this. It isn't that she's had bad luck, she didn't even apply. Add in that she didn't respect your workplace and insults you. She's basically trying to be the matriarch of the house, while being a complete mooch. The biggest problem is your fiancé though. This is just a glimpse of your future with a mama's boy. He's made it clear that he's okay with her walking all over you, and she's not leaving. You're going to end up as a third wheel in your own marriage. Commenter 2. I agree. His mom is taking advantage, and your fiancé isn't setting boundaries. It's a big concern for the future. You deserve better. NTA. Commenter 3. Exactly this. OP, you're not leaving them, you're escaping a situation that was never fair to you in the first place. His mom didn't just end up staying, she chose not to apply for jobs, and your fiancé chose to let her. Meanwhile, you've been paying the majority of the rent, lost your office, and now you're stuck in your own home with someone who disrespects you daily. If he wanted to build a life with you, he would have had a plan for this months ago. Instead, you're the only one being asked to sacrifice. Time to choose yourself, because they already have. Commenter 4. And be prepared for them to be upset because they are losing their money bags. They were using you and had absolutely no respect for you, neither one of them. If you don't leave, you will be the AH. Commenter 5. I'm a teacher. An old, retired teacher. I could substitute teach every day this week if I wanted to do so. I still get requests to appointment interview for both public school and private school jobs. MIL could work if she wanted to work. I'm in my late 60s and drive all over and in Mexico and Europe on vacation. She is needlessly helpless. Commenter 6. Good news, you discovered your fiancé is a mama's boy before you got legally entangled. The price is 3 months of paying double rent. Sucks, but much cheaper than a divorce, alimony, child support and years of therapy cause of dealing with that kind of MIL. Mommy wanted to prove her darling boy would pick her and take care of her. So she moved in and proved it. He won't stand up to her. Sadly, unless he gets some serious therapy and figures out how to unmesh, he's never going to. So tell him flat out, mommy wins. She gets her whittle boy back. You will find a grown man. You'll pay your portion of the rent for the next few months, but you're letting the landlord know you will not be renewing and do not use your income for renewal for him and mommy. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. You did what you could, but unless he wants to grow up, you're going to spend decades hearing how you don't cook right, clean right, raise your kids, spend money, vacation wrong, and have bad values. She, of course, knows better. Don't do that to yourself. And maybe, just maybe, this will make him realize he's got to get off mommy's titty if he ever wants a life of his own. Update. I posted here last week about the situation I'm in living with my soon-to-be ex-fiancé and his mom. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, but honestly I just got completely overwhelmed with all the comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kind of harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my STBX and his mom take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed at myself for allowing this to happen and not advocating for myself more. This past weekend I got my STBX alone so we could talk, which was actually harder than it should have been. BC his mom always tries to tag along when we do anything. Going through all the comments everyone left and the PMs people sent really helped me decide how to approach this. And also, brought up a lot of good questions I should have thought of myself. Back to the discussion with the ex, I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mom, not because I thought he would, but I just wanted to be able to tell myself I give him the opportunity. I explained again about how unhappy I am with the situation, how it's affecting my work because of her constant interruptions and just being unhappy and uncomfortable that I'm forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago I was paying the majority of the rent, and being that I make so much more than him, it's really my salary that keeps us all afloat. And I also brought up, again, the way she treats me and talks to me, and he replied the same way he has been. He agrees it's not right how she acts and that it's really uncomfortable for us all. WTF. I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously I would have dropped it there. But this time I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she first moved, and how unfair it was that I'm still paying for half when there are 3 people living there and she is the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same story, she has to conserve money since she doesn't have any income currently. Which brought up the question of where all her stuff went when she moved. What money does she use for incidentals? So evidently, when she got divorced, she asked for the divorce after my ex went off to college. It doesn't sound like her husband ex's dad wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house. Ex didn't have any idea how much that was or how much is left. But until she moved here she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she should not have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much. Other than that, ex didn't have much insight to her finances other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month. And from now on I'm only paying 25%, as some of the commenters pointed out. She has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child. So she should have to pay twice as much, and after I move out I'm not paying for anything else, no utilities, no food, nothing other than rent. I have a pretty idea what his finances are like, and if he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st but it's not late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the $. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I'll reduce the amount I pay in future months. The only reason I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office and they explained that since X and I signed a single rental agreement together, e.g. one contract we both signed as opposed to two contracts we sign individually, we are both responsible for the rent. They don't care who actually pays as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself or together with his mom. But in all likelihood he wouldn't be able to pass the credit check on his own, so I'm kind of stuck. I don't think he'll do anything stupid tough because he's going to need to find someplace to live after this and a collection on his credit report wouldn't be good. I also told him that I'm going to find someplace to work during the day until I move so she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in person 9-5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mom, I'm not about to overstay my welcome so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it I'll get a membership at one of those WeWork kind of places. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files, valuables and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. He really didn't take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mom. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed I wanted to take care of her as much as him and he kept saying stuff like, what about my mom, what am I going to tell her, that's how she is but we still need to help her, etc. He asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I move out I need some space from him. In a few months when we've both had some time space to process what happened, if we both agree we can talk about the relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward and will set boundaries with his mom. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together. I told him he needs to tell his mom because she's not my responsibility or problem and she'll know something's up when I start moving my stuff out. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend I'm going to start moving things so he doesn't have much time. My friend's current roommate starts a new job in another state on the 3rd, so in reality I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending when she actually leaves. I don't expect him to do anything bad, other than sulk and complain, but if he does something stupid, or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is I'll tell the leasing office his mom moved in, which is prohibited in the lease. Honestly, getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now, so it's a pretty valid threat I think. Now that I've mentally and emotionally separated myself from him and his mom, I'm looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's going on. If it gets too ugly, I'll find a cheap Airbnb or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So, that's it. I'm leaving and I really don't care how that affects them. Comments. Commenter 1. You're at the end of a long and painful process, but I'm sure that you will be the better for it. Good luck. Commenter 2. Dude should really just marry his mom. Commenter 3. Notify your landlord in writing that you are moving out and to take you off the lease after June 1st. You wouldn't want to do nothing and accidentally trigger an automatic renewal. Reply. Already did that. I did it before I went to talk to the front office and confirmed that they received it while I was down there. Stories number 2. My husband, 35M, is acting as if he was a romantic teenager who lives in a fairy tale and I, 34F, fear for our future. My husband always acted like a pretty objective man. Someone you could always count on to give you a straightforward answer even if the answer would be a bit harsh. A realistic man, I guess. I really like this about him as I'm usually idealistic or optimistic. Well, for a while now, my husband has been taking some questionable financial decisions. For example, I have an expensive hobby I hadn't partaken in for years because it is expensive and done in groups of 2 or more people. He decided he wanted to start it as well and he loved it, so I'm happy this is something else we could share, but he started wanting to do it almost every weekend and, to be honest, we can't afford it. So I had to be the one to tell him that. But okay, it was a one-time thing. No biggie. Then, my iPhone's battery was getting shitty and it would only hold around 15 minutes without it being charged. I found a used one we could afford and bought it. He decided he also needed to change his phone, even though his battery was working just fine, and wanted to buy the most expensive one in our country. I was against this as it is expensive as hell, but he told me I was being a bad partner and not supporting him, so he bought the phone. Then I decided to enroll in a course that could help me get more job opportunities, and he decided he needed a new gaming PC. His old one worked fine and still works fine. It is as powerful as my gaming PC that is able to run all the games we usually play. I once again told him to think if this was a need and he once again told me I wasn't being supportive. So he bought the PC. A few months ago he was having a hard time at his job and he got home saying he would ask to be let go. I asked him to reconsider as we are paying the installments of our home. I asked him he could have a talk with his superior and ask for help or advice, but I begged him not to ask to be let go. He agreed to talk to his boss and ask for suggestions on how to deal with the issue and then, behind my back, asked to be let go. Luckily his boss pretended not to notice it and everything worked out in the end. By now, I was getting worried. He had asked me to cover his part of the bills a few times, and I did. I asked him for us to talk about money and see where it was going, and he acted as if me ordering food was the only issue. I later found out he was giving his mom money she doesn't need, while I was starving myself to cover his part of the bills. I told him how betrayed I felt and he told me all I thought about was money. I told him someone had to think about it and he wasn't, and he insisted I wasn't a supporting partner and that I should have supported him in all his spending and in asking to be let go of his job. This just feels so surreal for me. Am I being unreasonable? He says that even if we had to live under the bridge, he'd go with me, but truth is, I don't want to live under a bridge. I work my ass off to be able to afford myself a good home. The way he talks sounds a lot like me when I was 15, but we are both in our mid-30s. I can't imagine someone saying this as if it isn't something to worry about. Am I out of touch with reality? Stories number 3. I ruined my ex-best friend's reputation for spreading rumors about me. I ruined my ex-best friend's social reputation after I found out she was spreading rumors about me. I just remembered this story from high school, and I thought y'all would find some enjoyment out of it. When I was a sophomore in HS, my best friend of 5 years, let's call her Sarah, blocked me on everything and refused to acknowledge my presence. When I tried to talk to her, she would immediately walk away. If I was speaking in class, she would put her head down and cover her ears. When I had mutual friends ask her if I did something wrong, she would just say, I just got tired of her. She's annoying and loud. I have a more chill aura and she's ruining my vibe. Her other reasons for cutting me off, according to mutual friends, were 1. I was too clingy for always expecting to sit next to her at lunch, 2. I was too needy for wanting to call her after school once or twice a week, and 3. Her mom, whom I had only met once when I was 11 during a field trip, did not like me. I was heartbroken, but accepted her choice. I am not going to beg for someone to love me if they do not want to. However, when a mutual friend told me that Sarah was telling people that I was fat, ugly, and disgusting and also spreading around my essay story from the year prior and telling people that I was 100% lying about it, we went to a small school of only 300 people including staff and teachers, so news travels quickly. I saw red. You don't have to like me, but spreading false info about a deeply traumatic experience and saying I lied about it. On to the revenge. Sarah was a deeply delusional person when it came to relationships. In freshman year of high school she had a huge crush on our 25-year-old married English teacher. She bought baby clothes, embroidered his children's names on them, and then put them in a box at the foot of her bed. When I asked her why the actual fuck she would do that, she said it was for when she turned 18 and could finally steal him from his wife. Never mind the fact that the clothes would be too small for his kids by that time. That is fucking crazy. After she moved on from our teacher, she then attached herself to a boy in our grade, well, call him Jack. Jack was in a relationship of 5 or 6 months with his girlfriend, Tiff. Sarah was convinced that she could home wreck them, and made a public Instagram account to post poems about Jack. Not too bad, right? Actually, these poems were about how Tiff was an awful person and she deserved to die so that Sarah and Jack could be together. The only layer of anonymity in this account was the fact that the name was only her initials. I knew about the account, and once I heard what she had been spreading around about my appearance and assault, my 15-year-old self knew exactly how to get back at her. I knew Jack's sister from a club that we did a few years prior. We weren't friends, but definitely friendly. Once morning I saw her in the halls and asked if Jack was still dating Tiff. She said, yeah, why? I told her, oh, that's so weird because I found this Instagram account that Sarah made that made me think maybe they were a thing now. I showed her the account, and she took screenshots of everything and sent it to Jack. 5 hours later the account was deleted, and Sarah didn't come to school for 2 days. I heard from mutual friends that Jack and Tiff both sent her long, not so nicely worded texts about her behavior and the account. Sarah got a reputation for the rest of high school for being crazy, delusional, and boy crazy. Jack's sister never told anyone that I'm the one who told her about the account, so no one ever found out I was the one who told her. We are now in our early 20s and since high school I have lost 100 pounds, had a glow up, have a loving fiancé that I started dating senior year of high school, a well-paying career, and a large support system of loving friends. Sarah however has never been in a relationship, has no friends, dropped out of college junior year, lives with her parents, and still can't drive. Was I an asshole? Definitely. Was it the right thing to do? Probably not. Do I regret it? A little bit, but at least no one believed her anymore when she talked about how much I was lying about one of the most traumatic things that has ever happened to me. Stories number 4. I, at 44, hired an investigator and have discovered my husband's, M47, affair and sex addiction. What on earth do I do next? My husband, M47, and I, F44, I have been married for just over a decade and it has been, for the most part, a loving marriage centered around our two beautiful children. Of course, I've had grievances. He travels a lot for work, is constantly glued to his phone, and sometimes would abruptly pop out 4 errands that he has always been incredibly vague about. Initially these didn't concern me too much. He has a very demanding job that has allowed us to have a lifestyle I never thought possible, meant that I could leave work to be with the children, take us on wonderful holidays, send the children to a great school. I always felt that complaining to him about his work, phone, computer, and random emergencies would be so selfish considering everything he does for us. However, 2 weeks ago, I started getting really suspicious after I had found a condom in the inside pocket of his blazer. There was no reason for him to have it there as we only ever have sex at home and, frankly, it isn't something we do as often as we used to. This prompted me to do something I never thought I would do, but I found an opportunity to get into his phone when he wasn't looking. I'm not sure what I was looking for. I first looked at his photos but couldn't find anything. Then I thought I would check his messaging apps, WhatsApp, Telegram. Both were password locked, which I found very odd. Only iMessage could be accessed, but there was barely anything there. At this point, I had a sinking feeling something was up. Last year, a friend was in a similar situation and used a digital investigator to learn more about her absent and secretive fiancé. The investigator found out that this man had been living a complete double life, with a long-term girlfriend in Edinburgh, and, unbelievably, a whole business he had set up and was earning money from. She had no idea about the business or all the money he was earning from it, and no doubt spending on his girlfriend. I asked for the investigators' details and requested that they pull together anything and everything they could find about my husband. The investigator spent about a week digging online and came back to me with a report that changed my life forever. I got a call from the investigator, warning me that my husband's report would be a very difficult read, and that I should open it in private at a time when I would be able to process it fully. Since I received it, I have barely been able to eat, sleep, properly take care of the kids, or speak to him, and yet he is so absent-minded he doesn't even realize something is wrong. It turns out that my husband of over 10 years has been having an affair with a woman 15 years his junior, financing this woman's lifestyle and her failed business venture, attending sex parties with her, where they have sex with other partners, posting in a revolting online sex forum, including pictures of his genitals, and details his addiction to porn and escorts to his creepy online friends. Based on this posts online, has clearly been spending thousands on escorts as far back as 7 years ago. I have no idea where to go from here. I don't know what to do. I have no idea how to confront him about this, or if I should see a lawyer first. I know the obvious decision is to simply divorce, but our children are 9 and 7, I have loved him since we first met 14 years ago, and I know that I have a place in his heart too, in spite of these actions. If he is truly an addict, then maybe there is a way to get through this if he agrees to treatment. I am a complete mess and I can't talk about this to anyone in person just yet. Any advice you have for me would be really appreciated. Comments. Commenter 1. Therapy will not work because he clearly is reveling in his addiction and secretive lifestyle and he shows little remorse for it. Escorts, sex parties, and financing a mistress is way too far. That man does not love you. You're a live-in caretaker for his children home that he can occasionally have sex with too. Lawyer up, protect your own finances and lifestyle, and your children's future. Commenter 2. This is true. I know someone who was in this exact situation and later found out the man had exposed the kids to porn and also molested one of them. The person OP thought she married does not exist and is a mask for the real man who is cheating, lying and stealing time and financial resources from the family to pursue his own selfish desires. Couples therapy does not work for these kinds of people. It only helps them manipulate others and shift blame better using therapy speak and the hopeful and forgiving nature of their partners. It's going to be hard, but the sooner OP comes to the realization that she now knows who he really is and this is not some aberration of behavior, the better for her and the kids. Commenter 3. 1. Talk to a lawyer before you do anything. 2. Know this is not something that will be fixed or cured via therapy. Therapy only works if the person does the work. It isn't a magical cure that resolves giant issues just because you schedule an appointment and show up. The reality is you have been married to someone who was capable and willing to lie to your face systematically. Therapy doesn't just fix that. In fact, if he has a personality disorder, which I suspect based on your post about his behavior, he likely will never change. 3. Do more research into pathological love relationships. Briefly, ask yourself these questions. Does he have difficulties with empathy, egotism, exploitativeness? Aggrandized sense of self. Distorted perceptions of self and others. self-serving, boundary violations, blame shifting, low remorse, low accountability, motivated by power, control, personal gain. Just a brief place to start exploring who you are actually married to. 4. Talk to a lawyer and a therapist before doing anything. Someone who specializes in pathological love relationships ideally. Update. This is an update to my original post from around a month ago. Firstly, I'd just like to thank, almost, every single one of you who has commented to leave me advice or message me privately. I took a lot of advice on board, especially legally speaking, and this has proven to be of great benefit. I apologize for my long absence and lack of replies. I hope the update below can explain it. I chose to wait until after New Year's as I did not want to rob the children of one last Christmas and New Year's holiday as a family. In the meantime, I researched solicitors and sought recommendations from trusted friends. Rather humiliatingly, I did, after much urging on this website, also schedule and go through with an STI test. It was horrifically embarrassing, but I am relieved to say that it came negative. I don't know how I could have coped if he had gotten me sick because of his revolting actions. He made my job incredibly easy by flying out for a work trip, not that anything he says could ever be trusted, on the second, and I immediately got the ball rolling, met with the solicitor, packed up all of his belongings into 6 suitcases, had the locks changed, and spoke to a child psychologist to work out the best way to explain things to the kids, who are far too young to understand the full picture, of course. Fast forward to a week later, and upon his return I, having made sure the children were picked up by my mother after school, greeted him to a hallway full of suitcases and divorce papers. I had printed out the report in full and started walking him through it before he started breaking down in tears. It was a compulsion, he was unbelievably stressed, and that if I left him he would have not choice but to marry the other woman, whereas he would end it immediately if I were to take him back. This last part was truly the nail in the coffin. I don't think he even realized just how manipulative a comment that was to make. After hours of a back and forth and of his groveling, he gave up. He was left at the bottom of the stairs in the entrance to our home with his suitcases, waiting for a cab to take him to God knows where. There is still a lengthy legal process ahead, and unfortunately, it turns out that him being unfaithful etc. doesn't really impact how assets might be divided following the legal battle. However, I'm confident that my solicitor will get the outcome I need to keep the house and live independently. In terms of the children, I would rather not discuss them so as to keep it private, but it has been an incredibly difficult adjustment and sometimes I do feel guilty. As for myself, I am still completely heartbroken and frankly I don't ever hope to find love again. I just don't think I can quite trust like that again. Finally, I'd just like to add that while most comments have been lovely and supportive, I did get a number of comments and private messages blaming me for my soon-to-be ex-husband's behavior, claiming I did not give him sufficient sexual attention and that I shouldn't complain because he provided me with a certain lifestyle. Firstly, these comments are awful and betray a repulsive worldview with regards to sex, intimacy, and marriage. Secondly, our ailing sex life was not my doing and was, at times, an criticism I myself had of our relationship, not the other way around. Thirdly, just because someone provides you with a lifestyle, doesn't entitle them to treat you as if you're nothing, with no respect and no honesty. I would have hoped all would be aware of that. Comments. Commenter 1. Awesome job, OP. Commenter 2. For real. The update we all wanted to see. Commenter 3. Hours of groveling. What a sorry reaction. Anyways, I'm glad he didn't get you sick, and I hope the best for you and your kids as you move on. Stories number 5. I, 28F, caught my husband, 32M, doing the most disturbing thing with a reborn doll. I feel sick Ada for wanting to divorce him. Guys, I'm devastated. Just sitting in a hotel room, contemplating every decision I've made in my life. Everything is falling apart. I can't even tell anyone what happened. I'm lost, I'm broken. I feel like the world is crashing down on me. I can't unsee what I saw. I feel like I should have never ignored my instincts. Something was always wrong. I can't shake the feeling that I let this man touch me ever. For background, I'm 28F, my husband is 32M. We dated for 2 years, married for 3. I'm a nurse, he works at a tech startup. He's always wanted kids, and I've been open to the idea, but I don't express myself as super excited about it. Being a nurse, I've seen so many depressed moms who regret their decision, so I'm just cautious. But I don't mind having kids. I just don't feel that crazy mom instinct towards kids. Like a lot of my cousins say that they just want to be a mom. I just don't have that feeling yet. He's always excited, talks about it all the time. We've been doing some tests to make sure everything's good. We have been trying sort of. Last month was our marriage anniversary, end of January. After dinner, he told me he had a gift for me. I was excited. I opened the box and it was so creepy. It was a realistic doll like how a baby looks. I had no idea things like this even exist. He told me these are called reborn dolls. I was so weirded out because it's like holding a dead baby. The eyes are closed, it just felt wrong. It came with a bunch of clothes and stuff. I was just shocked why he would get this. I didn't want to be rude, so I asked, "Oh wow, what made you get this?" And he said, since I told him I don't feel that mom vibe or anything seeing kids, he got me this doll to help me. I was so creeped out, but I didn't want to ruin the night, so I just said thanked him and went to bed. Never talked about it again. A few days pass and last night Sunday, he went out with his friends. They usually drink so it's not uncommon. He was at his friend's place and said he'd be home late. I had work early the next day, so I went to sleep. At 4 a.m., I woke up to get ready for my shift. I went downstairs and saw him passed out on the couch. I went closer to wake him up so he wouldn't hurt his back sleeping there, and then I saw it. Next to him was his drinks, a bottle of lube, and that silicone sticky doll. Without clothes. Placed on his private parts. He was just laying there. Passed out. My heart sank. I felt disgusted. Disturbed. I quietly went upstairs, grabbed some clothes and left. I called in sick and checked into a hotel. Now I'm sitting here, devastated. I don't know what to do. I feel sick. I don't even know who to talk to about this or who to tell. He's been calling and texting, asking why I'm not home, saying I'm overreacting. He keeps saying it's not what it looks like and that I need to give him a chance to explain. He said he was just cuddling it, but I know what I saw. He has no reason to have that doll on him, in that position, with that stuff next to him. I don't feel safe seeing him again. I don't know how to tell my friends or family. I'm Indian, and there's going to be a lot of judgment about divorce if I even say the word divorce. My family will not hear me out. They only think divorce is justified if someone is being physically abusive. I don't even know how to explain why I don't want to be with him anymore. I feel like he's going to turn this on me, say I'm being crazy, and no one will believe me. Am I just overreacting or being the asshole by not hearing him out? I know my brother and close friends will trust me. But my parents and relatives? They'll think I'm insane. I am worried about going back home and facing him. I want to tell someone about it and want a friend or my brother to come with me if I have to go grab some more stuff from home. What should I do from here? Edit to this post. A lot of people are asking about picture. Before leaving the house, I took a picture because I knew no one would believe me. I didn't tell him I have proof because I am scared of him. My friends and brother will believe me regardless. It's just family that I am worried about. So hard to bring this up to them. I can't even discuss normal topics with them due to our cultural stuff. Despite having the picture, I don't think I can show it to my parents. Second edit, someone commented saying, YTA and a liar. My daughter has 6 of these reborn dolls. They do not have any openings where his penis could go get a life. I just want to add, I have no idea about any of that. Like I said, I just saw the doll naked on him. I never said what he did with it. He was most likely masturbating. People here are assuming he did stuff to it. I never touched that doll. I have no clue about openings or not. I am disturbed at the fact that he had it on him with a bottle of freaking lube next to him. Stories number 6. My 30M wife, 32F, tested positive for chlamydia. We've been married for roughly 10 years at this point. Things haven't been great the past few years, but we are both actively working on making our relationship better. She springs on me today that she just got word from her DR that she tested positive for BV and, more significantly to me, chlamydia. Cue the, do you have anything you need to tell me? I, genuinely, have never touched another person during our relationship. She says the only 2 ways she would have gotten it is if I was unfaithful, no, or that she borrowed her friend's sex toy back in December. I have not been tested yet, however after searching online I do have symptoms in line with chlamydia. I've been sick lately so I was just chalking it up to that, but I guess not. She said the doctor said a BV swab can show a false positive for chlamydia, so she is getting retested in a few days, but after connecting the dots I would be very surprised if it was a false positive. I desperately want to believe that this is a mistake or because of the sharing of sex toys, very strange to me, but I'm not female so I wish I was more confident, but things have been hit or miss for the past few years as we are working out issues. She has, in the past few months, become increasingly attached to her phone, posting numerous stories on Snapchat per day, messaging people on Snapchat, etc. At this point I fear I'm just overanalyzing, but I'm not sure where to go, what to do from here. Obviously I'm hoping for a false positive, but given my symptoms I don't have much hope there. Is it possible to get it from sharing sex toys? Is that a thing people do? Update. Sorry for not updating or responding, this is a throwaway account obs and it's a bit of a pain for me to go back and forth to answer some questions. This isn't AI, WTF. She accused me, asking if I had anything to tell her. She seemed very angry, then suddenly switched to very sorry, then slightly annoyed-ish and has remained that way so far. I have not made any accusations or reciprocated the question. Yes, I have an appointment to get myself tested tomorrow, so we will see how that goes. No, we have not been in contact with any koalas. Her friend is a female. She at first said it was either you or female friend. I was unhappy with that, as she's joked about girl before and I did tell her I considered that cheating. She shortly afterwards clarified that she had been drinking and borrowed one of her sex toys. I haven't asked for further details yet. We have always had a great sex life, we have children, cars, house, etc. together. It would be extremely difficult to untangle our lives, not to mention very financially impactful. I guess I was clinging on to the hope that this is somehow not what it very obviously seems to be. It has been years since I've been tested, never felt the need to as I'd never been unfaithful, nor had I had any glaringly obvious symptoms. Stories number 7. Oops, didn't mean to accidental petty revenge on my cousin's awful bride. I was never a fan of my cousin's girlfriend. Jim and I were both in our 20s at the time, and lived fairly near each other. But the more Julie was involved, the less I saw of him. She was a stuck-up bitch, and my dislike for her was clearly reciprocated on her end. But, they had just gotten engaged. Hey, it's his life, his mistake to live with. I went over to Jim's place once, we were going to catch a concert together. He was running a few minutes late, so I was stuck doing small talk with his new fiancée. And she took that time to show me the insanely elaborate and expensive wedding invitation they had picked out. This was going to be a large wedding, and the invitation cards were over $5 each, and this was in the late 1990s. Crazy expensive cards. I said, I'll save you $5, you don't have to send one to me. I'll RSVP right now, I'm going to your wedding, so no need to spend the money on the invitation. Julie looked as if I'd slapped her. You don't want to keep the card? I looked at her like she was a bit nuts. Why would I keep a wedding invitation after the wedding is over? You think I have a drawer with all the wedding invitations I've received over the years? I'm going to RSVP yes, and throw the invite in the trash. Like a normal person. I care about you guys, but not about a paper invitation. She was pissed. Well, your cousin cares. No, he doesn't. He's pretending to care to make you happy. This is just a greeting card. It's not important. So yeah. That was our relationship in a nutshell. She was all about materialism and appearances, and I was a guy in my 20s hanging out with my cousin, who fortunately walked in right then and ended the stupid discussion. But that's not the unintentional petty revenge. That came later, at the wedding. Remember, it was the 90s. Internet shopping wasn't then what it is now. So I had to go to a physical store to buy them a wedding gift from their registry. And while there, they offered gift wrapping services as well. As a 20-something-year-old guy, I sucked at wrapping presents, a trait that has not improved with age. So I opted for the service, and looking at the wrapping paper options, I thought, well, everyone else is getting gifts from here too. And they are going to get them wrapped here as well, and they are all going to look identical with the 3 options for wedding wrapping paper. So I decided to have some fun with it and I chose New Baby wrapping paper, complete with a small rattle attached to the bow. Hey, it's my sense of humor, and my cousin knew me well. Fast forward to an absurdly expensive wedding, and then they went on their honeymoon, and the day they got back, I got a call from Jim. How did you know? Know what? Turns out, they wanted kids right away. So she went off her birth control a few months before the wedding, because it can take some time for the hormones to leave your system. But in her case, it didn't. And by the time they got married, she was about 2 months pregnant. I assured my cousin it was meant as a joke, and I had no idea. He almost died laughing, thought it was hilarious. And I thought so too, once he told me his wife was pissed. She really had no sense of humor. And that, folks, is how I got accidental petty revenge against the uptight and materialistic woman who married my cousin. And don't feel bad for Julie. She was a drug rehab counselor, and ended up having an affair with one of her really wealthy clients. My cousin divorced her, and was very happy to be free of her by then. And yeah, she married the rich guy, who eventually also divorced her. And, I swear I'm not making this up, my cousin and her second ex-husband are now friends who commiserate about what a bad person she is. TL, Dr. Red. Don't read. It's up to you. But there are no shortcuts in life. Shortcuts lead to stupid decision making, and that's how we end up with Trump re-elected. Stories number 8. Aita for losing it and calling my father a weak pathetic man in front of his family. My father has always been against any confrontation or arguments. He is extremely passive, refuses to stand up for himself, and avoids any conflict. If someone isn't paying attention while walking and bumps into him, he insists it's his own fault. If his employer would mess up his salary, he wouldn't bother fixing it. If a mechanic didn't properly repair his car, he would just accept it as is. This unfortunately resulted in a tumultuous childhood with my insanely narcissistic mother. She controlled his every move. She got him to quit his job and be a locked-in stay-at-home dad. She had him do every chore. She insulted him at every step. She cheated on him relentlessly and even brought APs into our home. She enjoyed making his life miserable every day and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, were there for me so many times as much as they could be. They tried for years to make my father leave but he never budged. When she would direct her anger onto myself, in the form of screaming, insulting or general demeaning, my father never once found the guts to stand up for me or support me. When I was a kid, if I cried to Dad about something Mom did or said to me, he would sweep it under the rug or just insist I forget about it. Hell, he would even try and justify it. As I grew older, it really set in for me how messed up this was. My mother gladly kicked me out of the house when I was 18 and my father just sat there and looked sullen. Didn't say a damn thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamic was awful and I could have easily gone down the incel route if not for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to get in a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I got stationed and utterly destroyed my father in the divorce. She was killed a year later in a DUI with one of her APs. I took a lot of joy in hearing that it took her hours to die, and that's when I really knew I needed help to process things. I'm almost 30 now, have a girlfriend who is perhaps the best thing to ever happen in my life, and fully understands the situation with my family. I have learned to not allow myself to be consumed with anger and resentment by my past, or so I thought, you'll see, and instead put that energy to my future. I have been extraordinarily low contact, near no contact with my father since I left. As much as I try, I cannot make that connection with him. I recently went to a family reunion and brought my girlfriend with me. My father was there as it was his side of the family. They have many issues with him but he is family, so whatever, I guess. I made sure to avoid him. I was chatting with my uncles when I heard my father talk in the background. He was discussing how a coworker of his was going through a divorce as he discovered his wife was having an affair, and was positioned to have a very favorable divorce on his side. My father remarked how his coworker should work instead to forgive his wife and, by his own words, set a good example for unity and forgiveness, and how he believed he set a great example for me in that extent. I swear it was like a switch went off in my head and I was mentally back to being the rage-filled 18-year-old. All these years and he never learned a damn thing. I turned to him and asked if he was fucking serious. He looked at me and started to stutter. I know the next minute was pure word vomit and I can't relay it perfectly, but to sum it up I shouted how he was a pathetic father, pathetic man, his family all know he's a disgrace of a human being who would rather his son be treated like shit than defend him because he's a fucking coward, no one would ever see him as an example to live by. His wife would rather fuck half the neighborhood than even touch him, and he should never ever believe anyone respects him. I began to derail and ramble between my shouting and my girlfriend quickly took me out and drove me home. It was insane just how quickly being away from him made me feel better. She just held me when we got back and told me it's okay. Again, best thing to ever happen to me. I was ashamed of how I lost it and am now going to resume my therapy, that's a given. However, I'm glad I finally unloaded Ahai always needed to be said onto him. Extended family is pretty mixed with reactions. His brothers, my uncles, said it was time for him to hear it from me. My grandparents are pissed I did that in front of the entire extended family, with some saying I should have done that behind closed doors instead of everyone. Aita has no consensus bot, OOP was NTA with a few YTAs. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, it sounds like you finally got to express the pent-up feelings you've carried for so long. While the outburst wasn't ideal, it seems like it was a necessary step towards healing. It's good you're resuming therapy to process this further. Reply, yeah, afterwards it hit me that although it was very cathartic, it definitely wasn't the most appropriate way to handle it, lol. Commenter 2, he sounds like a gentle, kind, and well-meaning person. You directed what is very clearly anger and resentment for your mother at him. It's a bit more complicated than being an asshole or not. You seem to have got some catharsis out of it. I just don't believe he is the one you really wanted to scream at, and from the sounds of it he was also a victim of your mother too. And while he was the adult and should have known better, he obviously didn't. Being no confrontational isn't some character flaw. It's psychological, and he probably needs therapy himself. Screaming at him and demeaning him actually sounds like something your mother probably would do, and I worry about you if that is something that actually made you feel better about yourself. Reply: yes, I fully admit he was a victim of my mother, but he was a victim who had a support system he never wanted to use. He fully let me be a victim my entire childhood because apparently it was too much effort to try, and to this day doesn't believe he needs therapy. Commenter 3, all I can say is based on your post and this interaction is your anger is deeply misguided. And you're failing to recognize the truly horrifying thing. You're behaving like the mother you actually should hate. Reply: OOP, oh trust me, I fully hate her as well, but she is gone, and there is no use in holding a grudge against a dead person. I had hoped though, after his son making him an outsider in his life, his family openly joking face to face about his failings as a father, and his ex-wife draining him for everything he had and making him start over in a one-bedroom apartment, his friends slowly leaving his life one at a time out of embarrassment, that he would have maybe have at least one moment to reflect and maybe consider he should have done things differently. OOP getting therapy due to his past trauma. Reply: yeah, either way I need to hop back on the horse for therapy. It'll be good for me. As for my grandparents, I really have had to look back as to how far this pattern of enabling goes back. I know they all did what they could to try and help, but it always seemed like there were times that more active measures could be taken, times where people should have been far more stern with his addressing his behavior. The older generation on his side are the classical, they're family and we stick together no matter what, and I have to think whether his passiveness and enabling is something he picked up on his own or something he learned from his own parents. Update 1. Thanks for the advice and recommendations, even amongst some of the YTA. However, some of them needed to be addressed because they were either hilarious or cringe-worthy. Some of them were very angry, and they kind of confused me at first until I saw their comments further down or saw their profile and saw rants about double standards or complete non-sequitur ramblings about women. So yeah, not helpful advice, and they were great dark reflections about how I could have turned out if not for the support in my life. Some attempted to portray my dad as a humble, kind, caring, sensitive old man who I'm just being a big bully to. This was a very good insight into how enablers of abuse get away with so much in today's world, because so many people forget how they are part of the abuse themselves. Some were attempting to mentally dissect me or have a gotcha moment with me to pull apart my story. That was generally asinine, and I had to step away from those before they asked for my cranial measurements or something. So it was pretty much immediately when I was up the next morning that I realized I needed to resolve the events of last night. I first spoke to my girlfriend and gave a sincere apology for having her see me like that. She reassured me that nothing was wrong, she'd known me for years and has always known me to be level-headed, and understands why I kinda snapped. She herself has a history of dealing with narcissistic family, so she absolutely understands the dynamic. She only really told me that it would be best to work on spending time around my extended family since my father will always be there. I told her don't worry, I'm immediately going to talk to them afterwards to figure that out. So that part's fine. Looked like kind of an ass in front of her, but I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. I also informed of her my intentions to resume more therapy just to keep myself steady, which she was happy to hear. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologized as well for putting such a sore dent into their family reunion. That it wasn't appropriate, and while I still feel it felt good to say that to him, it should have been privately and not in front of everyone. I also told them that going forward, as much as I love spending time with them, since the family always hangs out in one group that my father will always be in, for now until I can handle being around him, I need to distance myself occasionally until I feel comfortable interacting. I told them that I am nor would I ever be establishing an ultimatum or demands of them, and that either way I need to step back. I guess during my apology and explanation I was kind of just going on a tangent because my grandfather interrupted me to calm down. He told me that after I left, people kind of separated or slowly started leaving, and they eventually were able to talk to my father one-on-one. I guess seeing me have such a freak out resulted in my grandmother having a mini freak out of her own when she started talking to my father, resulting in her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both, my grandmother has always been extra protective of me, so seeing me that way must have set off a fire in her. My grandfather then said that it has become a bit of an open family secret my father's failing. His brothers taunt him about it and generally don't have a great relationship with him, and for my grandparents it's always just uneasy. But seeing me the other day and how it still affects me so much has really liked in for a lot of people that it was really bad. They began to try and say sorry if they didn't do enough, which I very adamantly retorted that they did more than what anyone could have expected. It was very emotional for a minute, but culminated in then telling me that they have decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being, and have given him the ultimatum that unless he has a deep introspective and regularly goes to therapy, that distance may become permanent. My extended family, I've been told, are going to try and reach out or call or whatever, but I asked them if they could relay to them that it's not necessary, and that I'm fine and am sorry to them as well for ruining the day, which again, they told me I shouldn't apologize for being hurt. Since then, extended family have sent some messages with the general consensus that it's okay, with some older members complaining about my lack of respect towards my father. And finally, I texted my father hoping to meet at a local coffee shop and have a final talk. I met him and he didn't look good. I think his parents tearing into him finally got the message through. I had so many things I could have said, but I instead asked him first thing if the coworker he gave the advice to took it well. He just said that neither him nor several coworkers interact with him anymore. I asked him if he truly 100% believes that every single thing he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He didn't really say anything. I then finally asked if he has any regrets for how I was treated as a child, and if he thinks he ever did anything wrong. He looked utterly defeated and just mumbled that he could have done more. I could have poked and prodded and could have gone on another rant, but instead I told him this should be goodbye and I hope he gets the help he needs. I think finally unloading my frustrations was what I needed to finally be able to move on and find peace. I absolutely need to keep on track for therapy and admit that a public bitching moment isn't okay, but I should be fine. Comments. Commenter 1, this is an interesting one. The ability to control one's failures, yes, that's what I'll call your situation, is very powerful. You'll do all right. Commenter 2, congratulations sincerely on owning your actions. No matter how justified, you acknowledged your outburst was uncomfortable for others and likely not appropriate in that setting. It takes incredible strength of character to admit your failings even if you have no idea how else you could have reacted in that moment. That you immediately communicated that to your loved ones is a huge sign of how respectable and genuine you are as a person. I really hope you keep moving forward from this situation with the same mindset. Good luck. Commenter 3, NTA, it sounds like you handled things well after what happened. You took responsibility by apologizing to your girlfriend and family, and it's clear you're committed to moving forward by focusing on therapy and healing. It's understandable that you snapped given everything you've been through. It's also clear that your outburst made your family realize the impact your dad's behavior had on you. Don't beat yourself up over it. You've done what you needed to do to move on, and it seems like you're on the right track now. Update 2. Things have progressed over the last couple weeks and I now have broader context about my family. Long story short is, there was a lot hidden from me. My father was an absolute asshole to his family, and that's why they treat him the way they do. I got a lot of feedback including the compilation posts on Boru, and one thing that stood out was people questioning if my extended family could have contributed to the abuse and that's why he was so feeble. And since I was trying to work on my relationship with my family, I figured it was tight to ask the hard questions before going that far. I met with my dad's brothers who invites me out to a popular lunch spot. For context and clarity, Dale is the oldest brother. He is married and has a daughter and a son. My father is the second oldest. Self-explanatory. John is the second youngest, also married with a son. Bill is the youngest, married with 3 daughters. So anyways, we met up and I ripped the band-aid off asking about my father growing up, what he was like beyond the basics I know, and what really is going on with their relationship. Dale sighed and basically summed up that besides what I know, there is a lot of backstory I'm unfamiliar with that they never told me about simply because it was never the time nor the place to. What I've always known is that my father was fairly normal when he was young, a little shy but fantastic academically, played sports occasionally, had a close-knit relationship with his brothers, and meeting my mom in high school junior year made everything go downhill. What I didn't know was that my father was a guiding figure for his 2 younger brothers, was generally seen as one of the nicest people, with a bright future ahead of him. My grandparents adored him and he even became a little bit of a golden child, but no one minded. The reason his family doesn't respect him is what happened to his behavior when my mother got attached to him. It first started simple. My mother acted rude and distant to the family. They weren't huge fans but my father loved her so they tolerated it. She became possessive and slowly isolated my father and convinced him to give up his ambitions and goals. Family became concerned and spent a long time trying to talk to him and convince him to leave. My father didn't budge and began to lash out. When I was born my extended family tried to talk to my father about my mother's attitude. My father was angry and threatened to report them for harassment. He was in denial about her behavior. When Dale's wife was having fertility issues, my mother messaged her appalling and cruel things. When Dale was pissed and went to talk to my father, he told Dale to drop it and even justified it. Dale punched him and police almost got involved. Dale hated him going forwards. John grew to hate him when my mother insulted his son due to mild physical disabilities. My father cracked a joke about what she said. John hated him then. Finally Bill, who always idolized my father, tried to inform my father that my mother made a pass at him and urged divorce. My father responded with a maddening call of utter hate and relationship-ending words. To sum it all up, the more time my father spent with my mother, the more he began to repeat her attitude. When they all signs of abuse to me and tried to intervene, my father threatened to lie, to accuse them of worse things. My mother had money and lawyers and could make their lives hell if they tried, and my father would gladly let her. They were stuck and could only do so much at a time. The older members of the family, like the grandparents, great aunt and uncles and such, believe in the traditional mindset of family sticking together no matter what, while the generations further down want to keep a distance from him. They're all stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's more. They told me out. It was all essentially that my father died on the hill for my mom, ruining his relationship with his brothers in the process. And when she died and destroyed him, he probably had to realize it was all for nothing. My grandparents seem to not want to accept the fact that he was lost, or maybe they hope he can fix his life. Who knows? This was a lot to process and was only confirmed by my father himself when he called me to ask about family therapy with us. I cut to the chase and asked if what I heard was true. He said yes. I would have agreed to maybe some family therapy, but now I have no idea. Final update. I came to the decision that it was time to cut off my father for good. The more I learned about how he was, the more I came to the realization that nothing good would come out of having him in my life. I'm also going to put some minor distance between myself and extended family on his side until I can process things more. There's just a lot of things to work through there. I met up with my father one last time in a coffee shop to talk things over. I asked him one last time, why? Why did he do all this? Why did he let his wife treat everyone like shit? Why did he treat his family and me like shit for her? Why did he do all this? He tried to weasel his way out, but I absolutely demanded to know. And he basically answered that it was because he loved her. Yep, it was that stupid of an answer. He loved her and just clung on to her no matter what she did. No matter how much she hurt him or others, he was an insecure man who just latched himself on the first woman who showed him attention. Even when she slowly destroyed his life, he thought it was better than trying again. I just got up and told him to fix his life, but I won't be a part of it, and I hope he has the sense to understand why. No matter how he tried to word it, I had two abusive parents. He didn't say anything. Just stared at me, which leads to last night. I got a call from my grandparents that the night before my dad tried to call his brothers and make peace. Unfortunately, from what they said, he did it in the most half-assed avoidant way possible, sparing himself any guilt. That didn't go well. After recent events and old wounds being dug up, they gave him a verbal lashing that made mine look microscopic in comparison. My dad hung up and lost his shit. Decimated his entire apartment before packing up what was left before driving off. They only found out because one of the brothers came to check up on him. From what they can tell from the few texts they have, he's lost his mind after decades of shit and is driving off to the other side of the country to start fresh. Also, from the minimum communication they have with him, he's acting incredibly vile towards them, and they say he seems to be acting just like my mother. Edit. Things are spiraling very quickly, and I'm expecting this whole insanity parade to come to a conclusion within a few days at this rate. Won't make any real update until I have all the facts, but I'm just glad I made the decision to move on. New update. Life has moved on. For those who stuck around, I'd say it's over and about as wrapped up as can be. My girlfriend fiancé and I are getting married later this year. My father is alive. He lost his shit and spiraled, but a couple weeks later came back. His apartment obviously barred him from coming back and are going after him for legal and financial damages. He has no job anymore. He is staying with my grandparents. He has hit the absolute lowest point and has finally taken responsibility for his life, his choices, and his damaged relationships. It's too late for a lot of the family, but his parents are seemingly giving some help since he's finally trying to fix things. However, the extended family as a whole has kind of blown up. My father kind of became a mascot for deeper family issues that have become worse over time. There are far too many to go over. When he finally got called out, everyone figured there was no use in ignoring everything else going on. Minor feuds have formed, some people aren't talking to each other. Some have entered marriage counseling and family therapy. People don't want to live by the family lifestyle anymore. My fiancé and I have decided to distance ourselves. We were kind of disappointed seeing how, since her family is insanely toxic, we could lean on mine, but I've come to realize mine has far too many issues to be reliable. We have a fantastic group of friends, so we will be fine. And that's about it. I'm gonna be wrapping this up and moving on to a far less bitter lifestyle. I'll stick around for a little longer to elaborate on anything if anyone wants. Stories number 9. Aita for not making an effort with my friend's baby while her and I were in a fight. I, 25F, am child-free, so maybe there is some aspect of parenthood that I'm missing here. My friend Stacy, 26F, had her first baby about 9 months ago, Haley. Stacy and I had some tension brewing in our friendship since she was pregnant. In the past, my time and energy had been very much available to Stacy. At times I felt that she took advantage of my empathy and willingness to bend over backwards for her. She lived about an hour away, and was always in some form of drama or crisis. I drove up to be with her nearly every single weekend, and the times when I told her I couldn't for one reason or another, she would beg and usually guilt me with things like, "I'm in such a dark place, I don't know what I'll do if I'm alone, I really need this." She also did a lot of passive-aggressive shutting down from conversation when she didn't get what she wanted, leading me to always give in and put my own needs aside. This went on for years. I grew tired of this pattern and started therapy, where I learned to set healthy boundaries, speak up, and prioritize myself when it was important. These changes led me to cut the weekends I spent with her in half. I was in the process of buying a house, starting a new job and master's program, on top of family issues. I knew that she saw the change in our friendship and wasn't happy about it, but thought that with time she would understand and adjust. She never did, and insinuated that I changed because I didn't support her pregnancy or because my partner was manipulating me into not spending time with her. I explained to her many times that this wasn't the case and that I am doing all I can to be there for her. Things came to a head when I had a health scare. I told her about it, and the next day she tried to call me. I was on the phone with someone else and couldn't answer, but texted her immediately after to let her know and make sure that everything was okay. She once again got upset because I didn't answer right away, and I had it. On the very rare occasion that I asked for support from her, she had to make it about herself. I didn't usually call her out, but this time I did. I told her I didn't understand why she had an attitude. She said, "Thanks for making me cry," and then didn't respond to me for over a month. Then, when she finally did, she didn't ask about my health. She didn't apologize or even bother explaining. She instead accused me of using her daughter as a pawn by not acknowledging her. She said that Haley didn't deserve absolutely no effort just because her and I were in a fight, and that it was so messed up that I would add Haley into the equation. I'm so confused. Haley had nothing to do with the fight, and Stacy was the one who had ignored me for over a month. What was I supposed to do in this scenario? I can't text a 9-month-old or just show up at their house. I'm genuinely lost. Can someone please explain this to me? Aita. Stories number 10. My husband's Trump obsession has turned our home into a MAGA shrine and I'm losing my mind. Venting. I never thought I'd be posting here, but I desperately need to vent. My husband of 12 years has transformed from a reasonable conservative into what I can only describe as a Trump cult member, and it's destroying our marriage. Our house has become a literal shrine to Trump. I wish I was exaggerating. There's a 6-foot Trump cardboard cutout in our living room that he talks to every morning like some sort of religious ritual. Our walls, once decorated with family photos, are now plastered with Trump flags. He even replaced our American flag with a Trump 2024 or death banner. My kids are embarrassed to have friends over. Last week was the final straw. He spent $3,000 of our savings on limited edition Trump gold-plated coins and a certified authentic piece of Mar-a-Lago toilet paper. $3,000. When I confronted him about taking money from our children's college fund, he said, "Trump University will be reopened and make education great again." I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. Every dinner conversation somehow turns into a Trump sermon. He'll randomly shout, "Stop the steal," during family meals. When our 15-year-old daughter got an A+ on her history project about the Civil War, he accused her teacher of being a communist infiltrator for not teaching the truth about Trump's victory. Our bedroom. God, I'm mortified to even type this. He insists on keeping a giant Trump portrait above our bed because Trump watches over us. He even got a Trump tattoo on his chest and keeps trying to convince me to get one too. He calls it his mark of patriotism. His entire personality has been consumed. He changed his wardrobe to only red clothing. He refers to himself as a digital soldier and spends hours posting on Truth Social. When I asked him to help with our son's homework, he said he was too busy fighting the deep state online. The paranoia is getting worse. He installed cameras around our house to watch for Antifa. He thinks our neighbors are deep state agents because they have a pride flag. He threw out our coffee maker because Starbucks is funding the radical left. He even accused our golden retriever of being suspiciously woke because she didn't bark at a Biden commercial. Our sex life. He insists on playing Trump rally speeches in the background and keeps trying to get me to wear a Melania mask. I wish I was joking. He has different MAGA hats for different occasions, including one specifically for bedroom patriot time. I'm dying inside. I found receipts showing he's donated over $15,000 to various Trump-related causes this year alone. Money we needed for our mortgage. When I showed him our overdue bills, he said, "Trump will fix the economy and make us rich." We're facing foreclosure, but he keeps buying Trump merchandise. Yesterday, he announced he's legally changing his name to Donald J. Trump Smith and wants our kids to follow suit. Our 10-year-old son started crying, and my husband told him real patriots don't cry and made him watch 4 hours of rally footage as testosterone training. I've tried everything, marriage counseling, he called the therapist a socialist, family interventions, he disowned his own mother for suggesting he get help, even pleading with his Trump-supporting friends to tell him he's going too far. Nothing works. He just goes deeper into the rabbit hole. The worst part? Under all this Trump worship, I know my real husband is still in there somewhere. Sometimes, late at night, I catch glimpses of the man I married. But then morning comes, he puts on his MAGA hat, salutes the Trump cutout, and the cycle begins again. Edit. Please stop demanding me about joining your Trump Wives support group. I appreciate the thought, but I'm not interested in your MLM scheme selling Trump-themed essential oils. Edit 2. Yes, I've already hidden our important documents and started a secret savings account. And no, I won't sell you his rare Trump toilet paper, even if you're offering Bitcoin. Edit 3. To the people saying, "This can't be real, I wish I was creative enough to make this up. Come visit for dinner sometime. Hope you like hamburgers while watching Tucker Carlson reruns on loop." Stories number 11. Aita for losing it on my husband and MIL after she hit our son. I'm F30 and my husband is 29. We have a 3-year-old son. He is from South America. I'll call him Juan. He came to my country as an immigrant and can now stay permanently if he wants to. I've only met my MIL in person on the day of our wedding and she seemed like a nice old Latin lady. I'll call her Maria. She recently came to the country for a few weeks. Juan invited her, so she could meet our son and see the wonders of our country, like gray skies and old buildings and old people. She absolutely loved our son and was so happy to see him and play with him. Everything went well, but one day I left him with her for a moment while Juan and I went shopping for dinner. We were out for less than half an hour and when we came back our son was crying and came running to me as soon as he saw me come through the door. I asked Maria what had happened and she said, he was misbehaving so I hit him with a spoon and he started to cry. I couldn't believe what she had said so I asked her to repeat it and she did, saying it as if she was proud of it. I asked her why she was so proud of hitting my son. She said she only hit him once, as if that was better. This started an argument. She said that children need to be hit once in a while or they'll become delinquents. She said that all her children were regularly hit with spoons or sandals and they all turned out fine. I couldn't stand it, so I told her to get out. She could stay in a hotel that wouldn't let her near my son again. She was so angry and started insulting me in Spanish which I only half understood. It took me 3 hours to get her out of the house. Then I continued to argue with Juan because he said nothing the whole time. He said he didn't like it but it was true that they turned out well. I said corporal punishment is never okay but that made him angry. He said, I challenge you to find a single mama Latina who has never hit her children, not even once. But that's the way we were brought up because otherwise we would have become weak men, and then he went on to say that I was suggesting that an entire culture of millions of people had been brought up wrong and that was racist. That is the short version, because we ended up arguing most of the night. I didn't let Maria see our son until I went back to her country, and Juan went to sleep with a friend. All my friends put it down to culture shock and that I'm crazy to die on that hill, and Juan is still very angry with me. So Aita. And racist? Edit. Thanks all for your support, thanks for clarifying it isn't a cultural thing. Yes, there is older people in my own country who still defend corporal punishment, but him insisting that this is a cultural thing and therefore shouldn't criticize it was bullocks. I try to contact him to talk but he keeps leaving me on read while uploading stories at a pub at the same time. I'm furious honestly. But I'll see what I can do. Top comments. Commenter 1, NTA. It's not a race issue. My Eastern European mother would do the same. Just because that's the way it always was doesn't make it any less abusive. You need to talk to your husband about how you want to parent your son. It sounds like you haven't had to resort to hitting so far, so why start now, just because your MIL is incapable of managing a toddler. Commenter 2, has anyone explained to Juan that OP is not a mama Latina, and this is not how children are raised today? It has nothing to do with an entire culture being brought up wrong. The child is 3, he's only met this grandmother recently and she conks him with a spoon, great way to get to know your grandmother. Commenter 3, he was pretty quick to call you racist because you disagreed with something. That's so BS, it comes across as very manipulative. Update. Hi everyone, it's been a while. I had forgotten about this account, but I was cleaning this computer before selling it and I was still logged in. So, on my last post, my MIL came in to visit our country. MIL and my husband Juan are from South America. We left her alone with the baby for a moment only to find out she had hit him because he was behaving like a baby. My husband defended her and called me racist because according to him, every Latin American parent hits their kids and it's okay, but it's not okay with me at all. So, the situation kept going on for a while. This became a huge issue in our marriage, and then Juan confessed that he had also hit our son when I wasn't home. He believes that is the only way to discipline a child and that gentle parenting doesn't work. That was it for me. The problems got bigger and bigger while he kept insisting that this way of parenting of the reason why Latin Americans are more resilient than northern countries, and that people in here are too soft and sensitive. We started fighting every single day, and then I just asked for a divorce. After that he became so verbally violent that now we communicate through lawyers only. I have plenty of evidence of him confessing to hitting our son, while he in his testimonies confirms it but says, is not that serious. This is stressful and I'm not doing well, so I have to sell a few things to pay for bills and debts. I'm going for full custody while he is doing the same, claiming that I'm an unfit mother for not teaching our son discipline. Well, enough with my drama, I have to go and do something else. Thanks everyone. ETA. I wasn't expecting so many people to read this, but wow, thanks everyone. To be clear, my husband wasn't beating our son in a way that could put his life in danger, but for example, wrapping a spoon in clothes so when it hits, still hurts but leaves no marks on the skin. He described this to me as a way to make me see that is not that serious, but is still unacceptable. This is not an attempt to make Latin people look like abusive parents, but one really thinks that because growing up he normalized it, he really thinks that everybody does it, and the people who wasn't raised that way are weak. And yes, we had talked about how to raise our child, but I always thought that not hitting them ever was obvious. I'm not sure when I might update with something important. I don't even have a court date yet, so it will take a while, but I'll be reading your comments. Edit 2, thanks for all of your support, but I can't keep reading your stories of child abuse. I'm so sorry. I'm glad the majority of you are doing better now, but I just can't keep reading them. It's actually making me feel so bad. That's the downside of having empathy. Sorry. Top comments. Commenter 1, thanks for standing up for your kid, you're a good mother. Your husband is an ass, to say the least. I have a Latina mother and she never even attempted to hit me once in my first 20 years of life. I moved to a different country when I got married, and actually defended me when my dad was about to hit me when I was around 7 to 8. Hitting oftentimes create adults with a lot of stress, anxiety, and fear to voice out their feelings. Commenter 2, NTA. Hitting a baby is never okay. They can't learn discipline at that stage, only fear and pain. You are doing the right thing, OP. Commenter 3, exactly, childhood abuse and trauma create scars that are evident even in adulthood. You are doing right by your child, good job. Commenter 4, stay strong, you're doing the right thing for your son. Stories number 12. Friend didn't invite us to her wedding, and didn't have the guts to come clean. Here for some petty wedding drama? I got you. Buckle up, this happened years ago. I thought, a good college friend. We'll call her Anna. We were in a tight-knit study group of 4 girls who used to hang out with each other a lot, both together and individually. We did choir and yoga together, studied together, visited galleries, did dinners, coffee dates and parties, talked about boys and friends and hardships and hopes. This went on for years and continued after we graduated. All to say, it was fair to assume we would have a place at each other's weddings, as we had a significant place in each other's lives. Anna and I used to go on long walks and discuss our lives and everything in it. Our talks would get really deep and personal, on both sides, and we were very supportive of each other. I considered us close. When she got engaged, I was elated for her and excited to go to her wedding with the rest of the group. Well, on one of our walks, the talk turned to wedding stuff. She was being evasive, and at length I realized why. The wedding was planned, invites had gone out, and I was not invited. Neither were the other girls. This may be controversial, but I said, oh. I'm so sorry, I just assumed I would be invited. Anna got very apologetic, said the wedding party was very small and ranking your friends to find out who was invited was a terrible feeling. She had been thinking of different ways to involve us. For instance, another girl in our group, Jennifer, was very into fashion, so she wanted Jennifer to help her find a wedding dress, and that way she would be a part of the wedding even though she wouldn't go. All right. Fair enough. I said don't worry about it and don't feel bad, it's your wedding, I totally understand, etc. But on reflection I still felt sore that she didn't have the guts to let me know up front, but left me to figure it out for myself. Like, she didn't even think that I would think I was invited. I faced the uncomfortable truth that we were probably not as close as I thought. I decided to distance myself and move on. End of drama, right? Wrong. Months pass, and I meet up with Jennifer. Jennifer and I are probably the least close of the group, but we like each other just fine. We have a drink, catch up. And then Jennifer shares something upsetting. She has seen on Instagram that Anna's bachelorette party came and went. Jennifer is confused about why she wasn't invited. Who are any of these people, she asks me. Who the hell planned this thing? Why didn't they know who to invite? Now I'm in an uncomfortable position, as you might imagine. Are you going to the wedding? I ask. Yes, says Jennifer. I'm the one who has been helping Anna pick out a wedding dress. But did you get an invite? No, not yet, says Jennifer. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Anna had, as planned, asked Jennifer to help her find a fashionable wedding dress, but as with me, it had been left to Jennifer to figure out for herself that she was not, in fact, invited. The two of them had spent hours and hours together looking at and discussing options, and not at any point had Anna thought to say, hey, by the way, this wedding you're helping me with right now? Yeah, you're not invited. No, I got to deliver that happy news to Jennifer then and there, including that this had been Anna's plan for Jennifer's involvement all along. Jennifer was understandably very upset. The cherry on top. A day before her wedding, Anna very kindly sent us all a link to live stream the event, in case we just couldn't bear to miss it. Completely oblivious. Stories number 13. Aita if I decide to contact my estranged son. Hello everyone, I don't know if this is the right subreddit as I'm new with it, so don't hesitate to tell me. So I am a 42-year dad and I have a wife, let's call her Amanda. We have two sons together, let's call them Wyatt, 20 years old, and William, 18. The thing is, since my oldest turned 18 we have been no contact. To make it simple, on his 18th birthday we had planned a party, but when we got home he was nowhere to be found. Most of his stuff was gone. My son moved out at 18, we didn't know why, and it's been 2 years. He's blocked us all, even his little brother whom he was so close just the day before leaving. It's tearing the family apart. Amanda still cries herself to sleep sometimes, William is a shell of himself and so am I. He isn't staying at extended family's house, so until now we really had no clue where he was. But last night I was at a restaurant with co-workers when I saw one of his high school friends. We started talking about it. He saw how desperate and heartbroken I was still 2 years after, and I guess out of guilt he actually told me what happened. Basically, we are from Idaho, and he moved to Seattle for a fresh start. Apparently, my son is gay and he preferred to cut contact with us instead of coming out to us and then supposedly being disowned. He apparently said he believed we would prefer to have no son at all than a gay son. And I mean, I understand where he is coming from. Living in a small town in Idaho, where everyone knows each other and goes to church, I get why someone like him would be so scared to be true to himself here. But I'm going to be honest. I don't care. It was a shock, sure, a hard pill to swallow. I've even showed homophobic behavior before, but when it comes to Wyatt I realized I just don't care. I just want him to be happy. I just want my son back. I spent the whole day trying to find his Instagram, and I actually did. I want to tell him how much I love him and that I don't care. But I don't know if he would like that. He left for a reason. Aita if I contact him. Also, I didn't tell my wife, William, or everyone else. Should I? Relevant comments. Commenter 1, sadly, YTA. Why would you think your son would feel comfortable coming out to you if you have been homophobic before? And I have news for you, being homophobic but not when it applies to your own son makes you even worse in my eyes. Anyone who feels fine hating on somebody else's child but changing your tune when it's your own speaks to your lack of character. Your son left hoping for a better life. Leave him alone and hope he has found it. If he ever wants to contact you again, let it be his decision. I think you should tell your wife and your other son. William should know why his brother left so he doesn't feel any guilt about it. Reply, thanks for the harsh but necessary truth. I will work on myself. This whole ordeal has made me realize what kind of person I am and I don't like it. Also, I will tell my wife and son tonight. OOP responds to multiple comments on needing to do better for his estranged son. Reply, I am willing to change for my son because I love him so much. I believe that his decision made me realize how much I've failed as a dad and I owe him this. I'm truly ashamed he felt he had to cut contact to be himself, so yes, I will accept him. Thanks so much. Commenter 2, so, here's the thing. You created an environment where your child did not feel safe. In fact, he felt so unsafe that he left without even a whisper. That speaks volumes to me. But then you literally cyber-stalked him to find him on Instagram. Do you honestly believe that this will make him feel safe? It won't. Trust me, my advice, if you truly want to change your ways, start by volunteering for causes like Trevor Project or something similar in your area. Start becoming involved and making a true difference in the world, so other kids can have a safe space when their own parents reject them. If your church teaches homophobia, stop attending that church and find one that is inclusive. They do exist, believe it or not. Basically, I'm telling you to start working on the man in the mirror and be the change that your son would be proud of. Until you do that, you have no hope of reconciling with your son. Do not contact him. Let his friend know that you would like to speak with him, but let him make the first move. Do better. Commenter 3, YTA for having made homophobic comments in front of your gay son which ultimately made him feel unacceptable to you, but I do feel, if you are ready to truly accept and love the man he is, then some effort to heal the divide between you is in order. That said, you have to be willing and to be able to accept him, not just be nice at first and then try to change him. He clearly left because he knew you would harangue him for this. I have a gay grandson. Sadly, for religious reasons, his parents do not accept him. It was a very painful journey for him, but he has worked through this and now he totally rejects his parents. It's a mess, but I can tell you that my gay grandson is one of the finest persons you could ever find, and that, to me, is what matters in the measure of a man. Don't bother to try to reconnect unless you can truly stand up for him and accept him. He left, I'd suspect, because he could not count on you for this kind of treatment. To answer your specific question, NTA for wanting to reconnect with your estranged son if you can do so with an open heart and mind. Update. Hello everyone, I posted days ago about my oldest son Wyatt who moved out at 18 because he was gay and scared of reject. Your response was overwhelming, as harsh it was, the truth was necessary. As you advised, I decided not to contact him yet, ready to make efforts to prove him I've changed when I do contact him. But I also decided to tell my wife and my other son, William. So I sat them down and told them what I told you guys, how I met one of Wyatt's friend when I was out, how he told me everything about Wyatt and how much we should love and support him regardless of who he is, etc. And that's when the shocking news come. William already knew everything. Apparently, 6 months after he left, Wyatt called William and told him everything. William didn't tell me much about what was said, but I know that they kept in contact, they text on a daily basis, and that Wyatt asked him not to tell anything to us. William, always loyal, did just that. Long story short, my wife was crying because she didn't realize how awful she had been acting, and William ended up texting Wyatt to tell him we knew somehow and that we loved him no matter what. Then Wyatt called me later, and while it was awkward at first, it quickly got better as we were catching up to life. That he was struggling with students' loans but that he was still sewing great. I offered to gather money for his tuition and he said, I'll think about it. We talked a lot more, it was mainly my wife and I apologizing and telling him how much we love him, not matter what, and that we're proud of him, that we are willing to change for him. He said he will be calling us in a few days and he will maybe visit this weekend. I genuinely didn't expect things to go this way, and I realize I'm so lucky he's even willing to talk to me. I swear I'll make it right and love him no matter what. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, you and your wife are really lucky he will even talk to you. I can only imagine what he heard over the years from you two to make him leave the way he did. Reply, I am well aware of this chance and extremely grateful for it. I will make it up to him, no matter what. Commenter 2, well done. A tip, I know you offered money to help out, but right now, it can come across as buying forgiveness or bribing him. If you do want to help him financially, it's important that you clearly communicate, and stick to, that there are no strings or conditions attached. If you give him money and then bring it up when he doesn't visit often enough or don't forgive you fast enough, then you've poisoned the well twice over. Let him know that you want to help but understand that it's not a fast ticket to his good grace and that you won't push it. Reply, thanks for the advice. Commenter 3, you're doing exactly what a good parent should, taking responsibility, owning your mistakes, and showing unconditional love. The fact that Wyatt is open to reconnecting speaks volumes about his love for you too, despite everything. It's amazing that William maintained that bond with his brother and that your family is taking steps to rebuild trust and create a more supportive dynamic. Keep showing up for Wyatt, words are a great start, but actions will show him you truly mean it. Wishing your family the best as you move forward together. Stories number 14, I, 28F, caught my husband, 32M, doing the most disturbing thing with a reborn doll. I feel sick. Aita for wanting to divorce him. Guys, I'm devastated. Just sitting in a hotel room, contemplating every decision I've made in my life. Everything is falling apart. I can't even tell anyone what happened. I'm lost, I'm broken. I feel like the world is crashing down on me. I can't unsee what I saw. I feel like I should have never ignored my instincts. Something was always wrong. I can't shake the feeling that I let this man touch me ever. For background, I'm 28F, my husband is 32M. We dated for 2 years, married for 3. I'm a nurse, he works at a tech startup. He's always wanted kids, and I've been open to the idea, but I don't express myself as super excited about it. Being a nurse, I've seen so many depressed moms who regret their decision, so I'm just cautious. But I don't mind having kids. I just don't feel that crazy mom instinct towards kids. Like a lot of my cousins say that they just want to be a mom. I just don't have that feeling yet. He's always excited, talks about it all the time. We've been doing some tests to make sure everything's good. We have been trying sort of. Last month was our marriage anniversary, end of January. After dinner, he told me he had a gift for me. I was excited. I opened the box and it was so creepy. It was a realistic doll like how a baby looks. I had no idea things like this even exist. He told me these are called reborn dolls. I was so weirded out because it's like holding a dead baby. The eyes are closed, it just felt wrong. It came with a bunch of clothes and stuff. I was just shocked why he would get this. I didn't want to be rude, so I asked, "Oh wow, what made you get this?" And he said, since I told him I don't feel that mom vibe or anything seeing kids, he got me this doll to help me. I was so creeped out, but I didn't want to ruin the night, so I just said thanked him and went to bed. Never talked about it again. A few days pass and last night Sunday, he went out with his friends. They usually drink so it's not uncommon. He was at his friend's place and said he'd be home late. I had work early the next day, so I went to sleep. At 4 a.m., I woke up to get ready for my shift. I went downstairs and saw him passed out on the couch. I went closer to wake him up so he wouldn't hurt his back sleeping there. And then I saw it. Next to him was his drinks. A bottle of lube. And that silicone sticky doll. Without clothes. Placed on his private parts. He was just laying there. Passed out. My heart sank. I felt disgusted. Disturbed. I quietly went upstairs, grabbed some clothes and left. I called in sick and checked into a hotel. Now I'm sitting here, devastated. I don't know what to do. I feel sick. I don't even know who to talk to about this or who to tell. He's been calling and texting, asking why I'm not home, saying I'm overreacting. He keeps saying it's not what it looks like and that I need to give him a chance to explain. He said he was just cuddling it, but I know what I saw. He has no reason to have that doll on him, in that position, with that stuff next to him. I don't feel safe seeing him again. I don't know how to tell my friends or family. I'm Indian, and there's going to be a lot of judgment about divorce if I even say the word divorce. My family will not hear me out, they only think divorce is justified if someone is being physically abusive. I don't even know how to explain why I don't want to be with him anymore. I feel like he's going to turn this on me, say I'm being crazy, and no one will believe me. Am I just overreacting or being the asshole by not hearing him out? I know my brother and close friends will trust me. But my parents and relatives? They'll think I'm insane. I am worried about going back home and facing him. I want to tell someone about it and want a friend or my brother to come with me if I have to go grab some more stuff from home. What should I do from here? Edit to this post. A lot of people are asking about picture. Before leaving the house, I took a picture because I knew no one would believe me. I didn't tell him I have proof because I am scared of him. My friends and brother will believe me regardless. It's just family that I am worried about. So hard to bring this up to them. I can't even discuss normal topics with them due to our cultural stuff. Despite having the picture, I don't think I can show it to my parents. Second edit, YTA. And a liar. My daughter has 6 of these reborn dolls. They do not have any openings where his pen, dollar could go. Get a life. I just want to add, I have no idea about any of that. Like I said, I just saw the doll naked on him. I never said what he did with it, he was most likely masturbating. People here are assuming he did stuff to it. I never touched that doll. I have no clue about openings or not. I am disturbed at the fact that he had it on him with a bottle of freaking lube next to him. Stories number 15. Thanks to religion, my daughter, 13F, has willingly taken the red pill and I'm both proud and sad. My daughter is from a previous relationship and her mother takes her to church and puts her in religious ed, youth group, on Wednesday nights. I've never objected to it, it's not my place to tell her otherwise. My daughter has enjoyed it, so that's all that matters to me. She has invited me to several church events and I've attended to support and be with my daughter. She has no idea of my own personal views. For context to the story in a dad brag, my daughter is very bright and has skipped ahead 2 grades this year. I'm very proud of her. I'm sure some might say this is fake because of the verbiage, but my disclaimer is the reason why she sounds mature. Sometimes she's my baby girl and sometimes she's a bright intelligent young woman. This story is about my young adult. I, for obvious reasons since I'm posting here, am an atheist, but I have never imposed my beliefs on my daughter. I picked her up this past Friday and she just exploded on me, venting the entire 30-minute ride home. We hadn't seen each other since the inauguration and she was quite upset. What came spewing forth from her was a surprisingly up-to-date synopsis of the current administration's choices. Which then led into her complaining about religion because she pieced together that somehow religion is being used to make these awful decisions about people and their rights. Which led to her telling me that she didn't understand how people could call themselves Christian and yet condone purposely malicious acts. Especially to just normal people and to good people. I had asked her what happened to have her draw up this conclusion. She said that during a Sunday school lesson, they were talking about sins and how the teachers were influencing things she thought were just normal everyday things as sins. Unfortunately, this led to a personal note to my daughter. You see, my daughter was born out of wedlock and they just so happened to mention that children born outside of wedlock were a sin and evil, to which my daughter raised her hand and pointed out that she was born out of wedlock but she felt she was a good person, who coincidentally, is also very popular at school and church, and the whole class fell silent. This threw a serious wrench in their lesson plan and the only rebuttal after the awkward silence, was that they would now have to speak with her mother on such things and my daughter left church that day, rightfully upset and crying. Her friends texted her that everyone was talking about her and her mom now and my daughter wants no part of the church anymore. She said if that was true, it marked the second time she was aware that church people were talking bad about someone behind their back and she wants no part of them being hypocrites. She was glad to get away and be with me that weekend, as it meant she didn't have to go to church this Sunday. On one hand, I'm extremely proud she's unveiled the church for what it is on her own terms, but I'm so broken-hearted over the reasons why. She's 13. She shouldn't be knowing about politics or the bigotry of people this early on in life and I'm very upset that this innocence has been robbed from her. Yes, I know, you can't shelter them forever, but I at least wanted to have her enjoy her childhood. I didn't really know what to do or how to help her other than let her vent and cry. I took my family to the aquarium this weekend, as a distraction from current events, but man was Sunday a gloomy day as we came back to reality. Stories number 16. I think I was raped last night and I'm so sad and confused. Throw away, I'm looking for any advice to help me process this and move on. Last night I, 28F, went to dinner with this guy, 33M, and after we went to his house to hang out in the hot tub and drink. Now I look back I feel so stupid and should have never went to his house. During dinner I had a margarita and 2 shots. At this point I told him I'm done drinking for the night as I am a lightweight. He said it's fine and we can just go hang out in the hot tub without drinking. I was already kinda tipsy by the time we got to his place. I asked him for water and he poured water from a bottle into a shot glass and told me to chug it that way because he had no cups. The water was actually tequila. He laughed and said he actually didn't have water. At this point I'm starting to feel weird and bad but thought I was okay. We go into the hot tub and maybe it was the temp change but I instantly started feeling super drunk. I tell him I don't feel good and that I have to throw up. He gets me out of the hot tub and takes me to a bedroom where I lay down and start throwing up instantly. This is where things get blurry because I remember asking him for water again and he brought me full glass of water this time. I drink the water and continue throwing up. As I was throwing up he gets behind me and takes off my bottoms and starts to have sex with me. My body felt like jello and it made the nausea worse. He was being so rough. I blacked out and woke up around 2:30 a.m. He was gone and not sure where he went but I was there alone. I was still super drunk but no longer wanted to be there. I forced myself to get an Uber home where I continued to throw up. I woke up this morning and called off of work because I feel so sad like crying on and off. I live with my sister and she can tell something is wrong and has been checking in on me every hour to see if I'm ready to talk. I want to talk but I don't know what to say. I also know this will make her sad that I had this experience. I don't feel comfortable reporting it but I just want to talk to someone. I feel so embarrassed I let this happen and should have had better judgment. I feel so broken, I will take any advice to recover so I can restart my life again. TLDR, I think I was raped last night and I don't know how to process it. Just need advice on what I can do to help me move forward from this. Stories number 17. Ida for telling my son I'm not interested in going to a wedding to someone that hasn't seen me in a years, him, and asking him to please leave me alone. About 5 years ago I lost my dad. It was very sudden and traumatic for me. The only good thing that came out of is that he passed away in his sleep peacefully. I was heartbroken and fell into a deep depression. My dad was my whole world and I loved him so much. I thought at this time was when me and my son would be the closets and would be able to mourn someone we both love, but he wasn't there. After the funeral he stopped calling and visiting me anymore. I excused it for the first 2 years, but after that it became unbearable. I was always reaching out, making plans, asking no, nearly begging him to see me, and I was met with rejection. I would see him going out with his mom and stepdad but never me. At some point I became numb to it and just accepted the new norm of our relationship. I focused on myself and moved on. Well, last week he ended up showing up at my house. It was unexpected as you can guess, but wasn't that heartwarming to me. He tried hugging him but I pushed him away and asked him what he wanted. I could see he was taken back, but he went on. He pulled out his wedding invitation and gave me one and said he'd love to have me there. I just scoffed. I don't even know who he is getting married to and he wants me there. I told him I don't want to go, nor do I see the point of doing so since I clearly don't know the couple. I gave him back the card and told him to please not show up unannounced and telling him to leave me alone. I closed the door. Took him 15 minutes to leave, but he did after yelling and begging at my door. Now I don't think I was wrong, but my friends think so and think I'm punishing him. Aita Reddit, logging off. Some of you don't deserve your parent. He was an addict from 22 to 24. He was abusive emotionally, mentally, and physically. I was there for him, held him, cried for him during that. His mom and stepdad weren't there. His friends had dropped him. His ex-wife left him because of it, but I was still there even when he stole thousands and tried hitting me several times. I'm so tired of him expecting me to be in his corner when he doesn't even care about me. I'm tired of him. I'm so fucking tired of him. I don't like him. I love him, sure, but I don't like him. Stories number 18. Can you ask someone to lose weight for your wedding? My friend, 33F, is a personal trainer and just got engaged to another personal trainer. All of their friends were met through the gym they both work at. I have known her since we were both 5. I am not a personal trainer. I a US size 10. So I'm not obese, but I'm definitely on the fatter size. I'm very comfortable with who I am, and my doctor is too. Well, tonight she called me with the best news. Her fiancé and her are putting together a great workout and meal plan together for me. They figure if I drop 20 to 30 pounds, the wedding pictures will be more symmetric. She was so happy and excited, like she was doing me a favor. I wasn't even sure what to say, so I just hung up and haven't responded. I completely flabbergasted. This isn't a situation where I constantly bitch about my weight and then get mad when someone offers to help. I've never asked for help. I've never mentioned wanting to lose weight. They both just kind of took it upon themselves to help me. Obviously I'm going to opt out of being her maid of honor, but at this point I'm not even sure I want to go now. Why would anyone think this was okay? I honestly have no idea how to discuss this with her. I feel like it's much more the fiancé than her. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Call her back and tell her you thought about her symmetry issue and have decided you can just be in the center of every picture to make it even. No weight loss needed. Reply: she should be to your left and the husband to the right. Douche on both sides is symmetric. Commenter 2. What the actual fuck? No, that's not okay. A real friend would never ask that of you either. Reply: that's why I'm so flabbergasted. I've been best friends with her since I was 5. Almost 30 years, and either the fiancé is a lot more controlling than I realized or she's not the friend I thought she was. Commenter 3. So they care about symmetric more than the friendship. All about image, no friend. I'd decline to participate. That is so callous and inappropriate of them, but you sure sound like a great friend, OP. Reply: I text her last exactly what I thought and said not to waste money on sending me an invite, well, be busy that weekend. My husband wants to get a sitter and find a nude beach someone to show me off in, lol. Commenter 4. What did she say back to this? We need updates. Reply: happy cake day. Honestly, I have 47 unread texts now and a voicemail saying she made the front page of Reddit and that's not what she meant. So much for a throwaway account. LOL, oh well. But to answer your question, I have no idea. I choose to walk away for a few hours to make sure I handle everything with a completely calm head. Commenter 5. They figure if I drop 20 to 30 pounds, the wedding pictures will be more symmetric. Oh fuck her. Commenter 6. Seriously, fuck her so much. This is such an asshole move. I am so shocked that this trainer friend thought this was remotely okay. Commenter 7. Trainers and elite athletes are the worst for this, though. They're just trying to help, and they see it as the same as a friend with a truck helping you move. They have something, you need something, so of course they'll help. They have no idea how condescending and judgmental it sounds. As if we are such idiots we did not think to try eating healthy and exercising without them suggesting it. I am surrounded by elite runners in my life and I guess I'm a bit bitter about people endlessly trying to get me to run because they're just trying to help. Reply. I text her last night and she tried to say she really thought I was just too embarrassed to ask for help and this was the time to do it. So I told her not to waste money on sending me an official invite, and it was time to find a new maid of honor. Commenter 8. That's like a drug counselor thinking you were too embarrassed to ask for help with the meth problem you don't have. Reply. OMG, I need to tell her this. Update. So wow, that post blew up. I ended up deleting it because my friend lost business over it. She had told a few of her close clients her plan. When it blew up and ended up on FB via different news outlets, they were able to put 2 and 2 together. They decided they didn't want her to be their PT any longer. That was never ever my intention. Although I feel bad, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Anyways, her and I talked in length. She admitted her true motivation was having before, my wedding photos, and after pictures, her wedding, of a normal mom transformed into a fit mom. She was also planning on having crop top dresses. After 3 pregnancies my abs are quite separated, and she wanted to help. She realized her motivations were selfish. She knew I would decline, so she had hoped presented this way I would do it for her. But yeah, her concern was never my health. She admitted that multiple times. To address a few things, $2,500 plane tickets were for a family of 5. I've also never hinted at wanting to lose weight. She knows I'm very comfortable with who I am. Also my doctor is very happy with where I stand. I received many very strange messages and comments telling me my doctor is lying to me. I can assure you, my doctor would make a lot more money telling me I was fat and needing to run extra tests. So he's not going to lie about my health. That's about the exact opposite of what a doctor does. My husband is not a sexist pig for saying he wanted to show me off at a nude beach. He's my biggest supporter. He just meant that I don't need to hide and I'm beautiful the way I am. The fiancé wasn't behind this, but he's pissed that I wouldn't just do it for her. He literally said, "Tell her anything over a size 4 is disgusting," in the background when I spoke to her. So good luck with your winner there. After we spoke, I have decided that just I'm going to go to the wedding, and not be in the wedding. My family will stay home. She feels terrible, but we've been friends for almost 30 years. I'm also not going to fly out for her showers and bachelorette, which I would have done otherwise. This really put our friendship in perspective for me. She had stepped back a little since she got serious with her fiancé, and I didn't realize the extent of it. He has some strong views on hating anyone over a size 4, and I realized she's slowly picked these up as well. I have no idea what the friendship holds after this, but I still want to be there to cheer her on for the wedding, but I don't have to be immersed in every aspect. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I have decided that just I'm going to go to the wedding. Wow. All I can say is that you are a way nicer person than me. Because if the original proposition wasn't enough to end the friendship, finding out I'd been made the centerpiece of a promotional campaign without any input on my part would have sealed the deal. Reply. I'm trying to be the bigger person here. Honestly, this may be the beginning of the end of our friendship altogether. Or we may be friends for another 30 years. I want to go, just in case we do end up getting closer again. If we don't, it's a weekend in my hometown with no kids and free booze. Person shrugging, medium light skin tone, female sign. Commenter 2. What about the $2,500 in plane tickets? Reply. Only I'm going, so it's only $500 for my ticket. Plus if it's just me, I have places I can stay without putting people out, don't have to rent a car to accommodate everyone. Commenter 3. He has some strong views on hating anyone over a size 4, and I realized she's slowly picked these up as well. As someone who's very much into powerlifting and looking good, absolutely fuck this guy. He's a utter and complete douchebag. Reply. I feel like douchebag is the nicest term I would use for him. I didn't think about it until all of this cake up, but the last few times I visited her at her house, she was dressed to the nines and a full face of makeup every second. When she visited me, without him, I don't think she wore anything but yoga pants and her hair up. So there's a lot going on there. Commenter 4. Thanks for the update and I hope you're able to be there when her marriage to this jerk disintegrates. Reply. This was a main reason I want to go to the wedding. He may not have spearheaded this, but his ideals are definitely a factor. If she gains weight during a pregnancy or something, I have a feeling he'll be less than supportive. If this all crumbles, I want her to know I'll still be there. If you knew her before him, this whole thing would have been shocking to you. So there's still hope she'll find herself again. Stories number 19. Why does she get to work from home and I can't? Now everyone knows. At my job, we are supposed to be in the office a couple of days a week. I am in almost every day as that's my preference, while others stick to their WFH days quite strictly, which is also fine. But I have one colleague who I work with closely that previously came into the office but now gets to work from home full-time, and I'll add she is great at her job and a joy to work with. Slowly it was noticed by a few people she was never in the office, and they started making comments how it was strange, she was lucky, must have found a reason for an exemption, as a special arrangement. They would look at me and wait for me to say something negative or complain, but I wouldn't say much other than that she works from home due to personal reasons, as it's not my info to share with others, and she is always available virtually if people need to meet or chat about a project. We were having a larger teams meeting recently, and one of these nosy Nancys raised it in a passive-aggressive way, saying how she hasn't seen her in ages and she's always at home and it would be great to see her in the office sometime, as their team all have to be in a couple of days a week. I sat there sipping my tea while my coworker dropped the bomb that her husband has been having seizures due to a rapidly growing brain tumor and he can't be left alone. She went on to add how she wishes she could get out of the house more often but can't even leave for coffee or groceries unless one of the kids is home or she can get a family member to stop by, and that the other option was to go on leave but felt it would be a burden to the team and she can still get the work done from home. Let's just say the horrified looks people had and awkward silence has ensured that hasn't came up since. Stories number 20. How can I, 36F, stop resenting my fiancé, 36M, for his reaction to my pregnancy and abortion? I, 36F, have been with my fiancé, 36M, for 3 years, and we got engaged about 8 months ago. In early December, I found out I was pregnant despite being on birth control. My fiancé and I discussed our options, but he made it clear that he wouldn't consider keeping the baby unless we got approval from his parents, and a commitment of financial support from them if we encountered any emergencies. My future mother-in-law is a very outspoken anti-catalyst. She tries to convince us not to have kids almost every time we see her, because she's a staunch environmentalist and thinks it's unethical to add more humans to the world. Given the strength of her anti-catalyst views, I felt convinced that if we had that conversation with her, it would result in extreme pressure to terminate the pregnancy. It felt like that condition was my fiancé's way of telling me he didn't want the child, without having to state that outright and be the bad guy. I ended up choosing to get a medication abortion, and I've been struggling with deep grief and regret. I do want to be a parent, and I can't shake the feeling that I didn't stand up for myself or my baby when it mattered most. But beyond my personal grief, I'm also resenting my partner, for putting his parents' opinion above our decision as a couple, for not offering the emotional support I needed during and after the process, and for seemingly moving on while I'm still struggling. I was surprised and disappointed by his reaction, because our previous conversations about parenthood had led me to believe that we both wanted to start a family within the next 2 years or so. Also, we have a combined income of about $150,000 a year, which seems like more than enough to support a child without feeling impoverished or needing significant financial help from others. Yet he still made parental approval a condition for keeping the baby. Also, I felt so alone during the medication abortion, which was one of the most heart-wrenching experiences of my life. He spent both days playing PS5 all day instead of spending time with me. He did ask twice if I needed him to run out for a heating pad or anything, but seemed relieved to go back to his game. I probably should have been firmer about needing support, but on the second day I was cramping so bad that I could barely form coherent sentences. He has been fairly supportive of my grief in the aftermath, and has reaffirmed that he is willing to start a family soon. But I still don't know how to move past this resentment. I do still care about him, but I'm finding it harder and harder to see him as my future co-parent, or feel excited about our upcoming wedding, May 2026. I feel like his behavior exposed deep issues in our relationship that I hadn't fully acknowledged before. At the same time, I don't want to make this grief even harder by holding on to anger. How do I process this? I am starting individual therapy tomorrow. I asked him about attending couples counseling with me, but he balked at that, saying that he believes it's only for relationships that are really on the brink. Have any of you been through something similar? I'd appreciate any advice on letting go of resentment, or navigating a relationship after a major emotional rift like this. Stories number 21. Wibta if I denied my neighbor's family access to my Wi-Fi. So me, 25M, and my fiancé, 24F, live below an older guy in our apartment complex. His name is Doug, he's super nice, kinda lonely, and has a really sweet little chihuahua. We have a pretty good relationship with him. I've helped him set up his cable and his new phone, made plates for him on nights that we had a little leftover dinner, helped get his groceries from his car. Just neighborly stuff. Well, a couple weeks ago his daughter, son-in-law and their 4 kids moved into his 2-bedroom apartment with him because they lost their home. I don't know the details. He told my fiancé that they would be staying with him until they got their taxes and hopefully could find a place. Now, that's a major break in the lease, but I've not said anything as I've been homeless before and understand how hard it is, especially with kids. All I've done is ask that he keeps his grandkids quiet past 9 p.m. as they've stomped and ran around and woke up me and my two kids multiple times. He's managed to get them quiet. His son-in-law, who he isn't a fan of, came down to our apartment a couple days ago while I was at work and asked my fiancé if he could use our Wi-Fi sometimes so that his wife could continue to homeschool their kids. She was caught off guard by the question as we've never met the guy, don't even know his name and wasn't really expecting the question at 8 p.m. She said she didn't know anything about the Wi-Fi, as a way to just run him off, and that I handled it all. He asked when I would be home and she told him 11 p.m. and he was like, oh that's too late, I'll just come by tomorrow. My fiancé advised that he shouldn't but he did anyway. Last night around 6:45, we had just sat down to eat dinner and he comes knocking on our door. I ignore it, as I'm eating dinner and our 3-year-old has the flu so he was extremely fussy. A couple minutes goes by and he knocks again, and I ignore it as I'm still eating dinner and trying to get our 3-year-old to calm down and eat. I wake up this morning to a note on the door asking if they could use our Wi-Fi as Doug doesn't have it and his kids really need to continue their curriculum but I have a feeling they also want to just mooch off of our Wi-Fi. Also his wife is a som and has had plenty of opportunity to ask me when seeing me outside in passing. Whipped if I denied them access. Stories number 22. Aita for kicking out my brother and his pregnant girlfriend out of my house. I, 28F, know this sounds terrible, but please bear with me. My brother, 24M, is the only son in our family, and I don't know about anywhere else, but in an Asian family, it's basically a given that he was treated better than my older sister and me growing up. Our father passed away right before my brother graduated high school, and our beloved mother decided it was a good idea to make my sister and me pay for his college tuition because my father paid for our tuition until we graduated. For the record, I don't make tons of money. It's above average, but I'm not exactly swimming in cash. Plus, I work long hours. The economy sucks these days. Now, I'm married. I proposed to this beautiful man, 28M, I've known since middle school after he got into a terrible accident that caused him to lose almost all of his motor skills. He was in a coma for about 2 weeks, and I swore that if he woke up, I'd marry him. So I did, I'm a woman of my word, after all. He also lost his job because of the accident, but he still has income from his investments, and his parents gifted him one of their property to rent out afterward. Yes, his parent is loaded with capital L. Even without financial trouble, I still watched him fall into a deep slump, struggling with depression because he'd been robbed of everything he knew, his job, his active outdoor hobbies. He couldn't walk for almost a year, and to this day, he still can't stand or walk for too long, even with his cane. He was in a dark place until about a month before our wedding. Now, almost a year into our marriage, I can see the light starting to come back to his eyes after getting really into cooking and baking, to the point where we revamped our entire kitchen to fit a bigger oven and store all his baking equipment. He's actively researching how to get a permit to start a bakery, and I love seeing it, even after 3 weeks of eating sourdough bread for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Back to my brother. He and his girlfriend got pregnant by accident. He's currently job hunting, having graduated 2 years ago. He started a business right after college, but yeah, you probably know how that goes. It failed after he spent almost all the money our father left to us, his 3 children, as inheritance. That caused a rift between him and my oldest sister. I don't blame my sister for being furious because he also spent her share of the inheritance after paying his tuition. And if you know anything about Asian families, you know the oldest daughter has it the hardest. He's also not really on great terms with our mother because of the unplanned pregnancy. She's not exactly against his girlfriend, but she's not thrilled either. However, he's still the golden child and that's why she asked me, her newlywed daughter, to let my brother and his girlfriend stay in our house until he finds a job. Since I live in a big city, she assumed it'd be easier for him to get hired here. I asked my husband if I could rent one of the room he owns to accommodate them. My husband, being the absolute angel he is, said that since what he owned aren't exactly suitable for long-term living with a baby, he'd see if he could remodel one. They could move in once it was ready and only start paying rent once my brother got a job. In the meantime, they could stay in our upstairs guest room. I've read stories about situations like this being recipes for disaster, and damn, I should have listened. They moved in sometime before Christmas. Both of them did the bare minimum around the house. They washed their own dishes, but only the small ones like plates, glasses, and bowls, leaving the pots and pans for us to clean. They did their own laundry, but that's it. They'd raid our pantry and fridge without ever restocking anything. Some days, I didn't even get a taste of my husband's baked goods. They'd eat the ones he specifically set aside for me. I had to wash dishes that I knew my husband didn't use, even after pulling 2 consecutive shifts at the hospital. I'm a freaking resident. They never vacuumed the second floor where they stayed, never helped take out the trash even though they filled it to the brim. I usually helped him with it whenever I got time, but I had seen my husband taking out trash multiple times when I just got home. I don't expect them to clean the whole house, but come on, watching my husband limp around with his cane, washing dishes and taking out the trash while they did nothing. That's just rude, especially when they're living rent-free. Of course, I confronted them with a very watered-down and gentle version of, bro, you won't get a job if you can't even help take out the trash, and sis, you're pregnant but you can at least wash the dishes you use. Both of you have 2 hands, you can wash the cooking utensils you use to make food. Teamworks make the dream works. They got slightly better after that. Now they wash all their dishes, but don't bother putting them back in the drawers. But hey, progress. Now, here's the breaking point. During Chinese New Year, my mother and oldest sister came to visit. My husband went all out with his cooking. I cleaned the entire house and prepared the other guest room for my family. That's when I realized the second floor hadn't been vacuumed in ages. My brother and his girlfriend didn't come out of their room until my family arrived. We exchanged greetings, gave my mother her New Year's bow, and sat down for dinner. That's when all hell broke loose. My brother, with confidence straight out of his colon, actually said it was time for my husband to get a real job again because he can walk now. He added that he's younger but working hard to find a job. Then he really added the words "no offense," before saying cooking is a weird hobby for a big guy, 6 inch 3 foot, like him, and also he doesn't really have the talent for it. His girlfriend chimed in, saying she feels like my husband is more feminine than she is because he takes care of the house and cooks better than she does. Of course, the bar is somewhere below Satan's throne if she's the standard. She even said she and my brother keep asking my husband why he's still at home when it's been years since his accident, and that I'll leave him soon if he keeps being cooped up in the house. She then whined about how my husband always just smiled at them and never responded. I think even my brother realized she'd messed up because he quickly backpedaled, saying it was only once or twice. I just stood up, took both their plates, and told them to pack up and leave. I couldn't even look at my husband. I was so pissed and ashamed of them. It took every ounce of self-control not to curse them out right then and there. They said I was being too sensitive over harmless comments. My mother tried to defuse the situation, saying my brother and his girlfriend meant well, that their comments didn't come from a bad place, and even pointed out that my husband didn't seem offended, so she asked, why ruin a good day, which I ignored. I even handed them my car keys because I just wanted them gone. They left with my oldest sister after giving my husband a half-hearted apology. She told me they stayed at a motel before returning back to my mother's house. The next day, my older sister came by to pick up my brother's stuff. She laughed a lot about the whole ordeal, and she's the only one who thinks I did the right thing. My husband said he was glad I defended him, but he never took their comments to heart because he knows I love what he's doing, so he suggested I might have been a little harsh. My mother later told me their words weren't a good enough reason to kick out my struggling brother and pregnant girlfriend. She really emphasized the pregnant part. She said I could have just scolded him like I did over the dishes. Yep, he tattled about that too. I still don't think I am the asshole nor I'm overreacting. I'm still pissed off, to be honest, but now I'm second-guessing myself because even my husband was so chill about it. Am I the asshole? Stories number 24. My 22M, third aunt, 42F, wants to have sex with me. I went to a family reunion on New Year's, and while everybody was already drunk, my uncle and cousins went to go smoke outside. My aunt came over to us to talk and gave me a hug while she put my arm around her waist while we continued to talk. Didn't think anything of it. Now 2 days ago, after her birthday, I had posted a story on my IG and she sent me a text saying that I looked so handsome and was a little flirty. I noticed, saying stuff like, "You must have the girls all over you," and I started to get very sexual undertones from what she was saying. After a couple of minutes of flirting back and forth with her, I shot my shot and told her that since her birthday was a couple of days ago, we should go celebrate. She said yes and that she wanted to know how I would celebrate her. I was already kind of turned on by it, so I told her we should get a room so I can treat her right. To my surprise, she told me that ever since New Year's she had feelings for me and that she was down. Now she's actually trying to make plans to meet and telling me not to tell anyone. Now I don't know how to feel about this. Never thought anything like this happened outside of porn. Don't know if I should go forward with this. Stories number 25. Today I left my husband. Thank you, our atheism, for giving me the strength to do so. For a bit of background, yesterday I made a post asking people whether or not I should leave my Christian husband. I expected to only get a handful of replies, but much to my surprise there were over 100 responses. I read them all and couldn't be any more grateful for all of your thoughts. For what it's worth, I've had a few people message me about what I decided to do, and the answer is that at first I was honestly on the fence, but I realized that leaving was really the only option, and so as tough as it was, I've talked to him, and in spite of how he feels, I plan on getting a divorce. As of today, my life is now Christian-free. I know I am just some random woman on the internet, and most of you probably don't care, but I just wanted to thank you all for giving me the strength to make this decision. I'm now looking forward to opening up a fresh chapter of my life free of religious delusion. Thank you all. Stories number 26. Aita for refusing to go on a family trip after my sister called me the family failure. So, I, 25F, have always had a bit of a rocky relationship with my older sister, 27F. She's always been the golden child in our family, straight A's, great job, married with kids, you get the idea. Meanwhile, I took a different path. I struggled through college, jumped between jobs, and I'm currently working a retail job while trying to figure out my career. Not perfect, but I'm doing my best. Last week, we had a family dinner where my parents announced they wanted to take the whole family on a vacation to celebrate their anniversary. It sounded nice until my sister started joking about how she hopes I can actually afford to take time off. She then followed it up by saying, "It's okay, we all know you're the family failure, but at least you're fun to have around." Everyone laughed. I awkwardly smiled, but inside, I was done. This isn't the first time she's made comments like that, but it hit differently this time. After the dinner, I told my parents I wasn't comfortable going on the trip. They tried to brush it off as my sister, just joking, but I told them I'm tired of being disrespected. Now my whole family is upset with me. My sister texted me saying I'm being dramatic and that I'm ruining the trip for everyone. My parents said they understand I'm hurt, but I should come and not let her get to me. I really don't want to go, but now I feel guilty for upsetting everyone. Aita for saying no to the trip. Stories number 27. AIO for breaking up with my BF after he got mad I'm not paying for his new gaming PC. First, some context. I, 27F, recently won $9,000 online. When my boyfriend, 29M, of 2 years found out, he immediately demanded I buy him a new gaming PC worth $3,000. His current one works fine but is 5 years old. When I refused and said I wanted to save the money, he completely lost it. He started calling me selfish and stingy, bringing up every small gift or dinner he's ever bought me, nothing over $100, telling our mutual friends that I'm greedy and don't care about him, giving me the cold shoulder and making passive-aggressive comments. After a week of this behavior, I broke up with him. I realized this wasn't just about the PC, it showed his true colors and how he views our relationship. He thinks he's entitled to my money and tries to manipulate me when he doesn't get his way. Some of our mutual friends are saying I overreacted and should have just compromised since it's only money. But I feel like his reaction to my win revealed some major character flaws and red flags I can't ignore. Am I overreacting? I feel like ending a 2-year relationship over this might seem extreme to some people, but his behavior really disturbed me. I keep second-guessing my decision even though my gut says I did the right thing. Stories number 28. Aita for being strict about managing our money and not allowing my wife to pawn her necklace to help her sister pay off debt. I, 28M, am from the Philippines and have been in a bit of a financial bind recently, trying to manage our family's finances as best I can. My wife, 28F, and I have 2 kids, a 7-year-old son and a daughter who will be turning 1 soon. I'm the only one working, and I earn about $850 a month. After paying bills and groceries, money is tight. In January, I received a total of $828. I paid $234 in bills in total and gave my wife $144 to budget for the first 2 weeks. The rest, I kept as savings for our daughter's birthday, with the plan to add more in the upcoming paychecks. Unfortunately, we didn't manage the $144 well, and by the next paycheck, we were down to $54 in savings. On January 10th, I noticed my wife only had $28 left, and by the 12th, she was down to just $5. When I asked how that happened, she got upset but said not to worry because it was all spent on us. At this point, I had to dip into the savings I set aside for our daughter's birthday to cover expenses. Fast forward to later in the month, and I decided to take control of the finances for the next paycheck. I told my wife I would be handling the money for the next 2 paychecks so I could keep track of everything. I told her she could still take money from my wallet, but she would have to let me know how much and what it was for. She got upset, saying I don't trust her and that I was being selfish. A few days later, I discovered she was planning to pawn her necklace to help her sister pay off her debt. I tried to open up a conversation by asking about her sister's situation, hoping she would tell me about the necklace. Eventually, I directly asked if she planned to pawn it to help her sister, and she admitted it. I told her I was against it because we were already in a tough spot financially, and we needed the necklace for our daughter's birthday. That led to an argument, and she said she'd rather not celebrate our daughter's birthday than not help her sister. I tried to explain that it's okay to help others, but it can't come at the cost of our own financial stability. She became really angry and said she wasn't willing to understand or give me a chance to explain. She accused me of not trusting her and being selfish, and we've been at odds since then. On top of all this, she's been acting childish in this situation. She insists on not touching our shared money, which we are supposed to spend as part of our budget, but then complains about having it difficult. When I called her out on this behavior, I made it very clear that she needs to grow up and be more responsible. I've been feeling hurt because I feel like I made my plans clear and that I'm just trying to keep us financially stable. Aita for being strict about managing our money and not allowing my wife to pawn the necklace to help her sister. Stories number 30. I finally know why my prayers were never answered. When I was 6, I prayed for my mother to stop crying. Her sobs rattled through the walls each night, her body curled into the couch, empty bottles rolling across the floor. I clasped my hands and whispered into the dark, asking God to make her better, to take away the sadness that made her a ghost in her own home. She never got better. When I was 12, I prayed for my father to come back. At dinner, I told my mother I had won a school competition. She nodded without looking up. "That's nice, sweetheart." I glanced at the empty chair where he used to sit, aching to hear, "Well done, son. I'm proud of you." That night, I asked for a sign that he still thought of us, that we weren't just a past life he had erased. The chair stayed empty. When I was 17, I prayed for strength. The kids at school left bruises where they thought no one would see. I never hit back. I never let them turn me cruel. I told myself it was a test, that God was watching, that kindness meant something even when it hurt. The bruises faded. The loneliness never did. When I was 32, I stopped praying for myself. Instead, I prayed for others, for the old man sleeping outside my apartment. For the children in the hospital whose bodies failed them before they had a chance to live. For the friend who fought his demons alone and lost. The world never changed. But I still believed, even when I was old. Even when sickness ate away at me. Even when I took my final breath, I opened my eyes to find myself standing before the gates of heaven. Except, the golden arch stood twisted and rusted, barely clinging to its hinges. The pearl-adorned walls, once radiant with divine light, were cracked and overgrown with vines, abandoned for centuries. Beyond the gates, heaven stretched before me, its faded gold tarnished, its streets empty beneath sagging clouds. The bodies of angels littered the ground, their wings torn and burned. Shattered halos lay half-buried like discarded crowns. No voices. No songs. No warmth, only silence. At the heart of heaven, the throne stood empty, its seat split apart, as if whatever had once sat there had left a long, long time ago. I stood in the ruins of the kingdom I had spent my entire life believing in. A place I had prayed to, cried for, held on to when everything else had failed. It was then I realized why, in life, my prayers were never answered. There was no longer anyone here to hear them. Stories number 31. Aita 4, changing my mind on wanting kids, and saying, I've never been more disappointed in my wife. My wife and I are both 27. We got married at 21, I know that's young. We never wanted kids and agreed to it. In August, my wife's sister and her husband died. We minded their kids, 6 and 3, since. She is a godmother to the 6-year-old and I'm a godfather to the 3-year-old. We had a really good relationship with the couple. Her husband was my pub football buddy, etc. We recently were asked our intentions with the kids. We had a huge fight. She wants to put them in care but I don't. Financially we are very good. No debt. Own our home, inherited. I have a successful business. She has been very successful so far in her job, etc. She said she doesn't want to be tied down to kids. I said it wouldn't have been my first choice but they are family. She said I knew you'd change your mind on kids. I was like I didn't change my mind, the circumstances changed. I asked her if she didn't see a duty to them, she said no. She said they'll get a family maybe with kids already in the home and they will be better off. And I said if they don't get a family or if they get a family that isn't great. She said I'm not minding them. The ball's in your court, she said. I asked if she's 100% certain. She said yeah. I was honestly shocked and said I've never been more disappointed in her. She said likewise. We have never argued ever, maybe a fun argument over what show to watch. We aren't even talking. We still give each other a morning kiss and cuddle but that's about it. Selfishly there's a tiny part of me wondering if she would feel any responsibility to me if something happened to me. I know that's unfair. I also find it incredibly heartless. The eldest still cries many nights. You can see the sadness in him. To say into care you go. Au revoir. It's mind-blowing to me, just for balance. I do love her and she is a great woman. Aita Reddit. Let's not be at my wife. She has even through a lot. Disagree, but some of the language is disgusting. If you think it's AI crap, then move on. I'm sick of seeing it. I've enough to be dealing with without you spamming that. Godparent guardian where we live. My godparents wouldn't have been my legal guardian. But we are family. Another edit, I'm logging off so won't be answering. I hoped for a bit of help etc. The spamming was just too much. I suppose don't look for advice from online. Thanks to the people who were kind even if they don't agree with my ultimate decision being to prioritize my wife. Sorry if I didn't reply. Stories number 32, Financial Infidelity and Secret Day Trips While I Was at Work. I, 39F, discovered that my husband 47M, of 14 years had been secretly depositing money into an old joint bank account we used early in our marriage. In January 2022, I, 39F, discovered that my husband 47M, of 14 years had been secretly depositing money into an old joint bank account we used early in our marriage. In 2020, after being laid off, he received a severance package, which we used to pay off debt and remodel our home. He quickly found a new remote job, and a few months later, he received his sales commissions, about $13,000. Instead of depositing it into our main account, he secretly funneled it into the old account and, according to bank records, and invested it in cryptocurrency. As I reviewed 20 months of transactions, a pattern emerged. Twice a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the days I worked in the office, he withdrew $200 to $400 in cash from an ATM at a gas station in a town 30 miles away. I had no idea he wasn't home working, and unsurprisingly, he was eventually fired from his new job. I also found evidence of him using a VPN and a secret email address with a non-recoverable password. Unfortunately, I only uncovered this bank account when he was nearly out of money. When I confronted him about these secretive trips, his response was vague, nothing memorable, maybe I had beer and played a slot machine at a bar. But I wouldn't have cared if he'd gone out for lunch and a drink, so why the secrecy? His explanations for the hidden email were just as weak. He supposedly forgot the password and didn't remember making it unrecoverable. As for the VPN, he claimed he used it to watch porn. I regret not hiring a private investigator to follow him on one of those day trips. Not knowing what he was doing those days eats away at me. 3 years later, our marriage is still suffering. Despite couples and individual therapy, I can't shake the distrust. Every time something suspicious happens, my anxiety resurfaces. One day, he came home with glitter in his beard, another mystery with no plausible explanation. My mind won't rest without answers. I've told him that if he tells me the truth, we can work through it and move on. But he insists there's nothing to confess. I fear that whatever he was doing back then, he's still doing now, and that's why he won't admit it because then he would need to give it up. He insists that since I uncovered everything, he has been a perfect and honest husband. And to his credit, he has made changes, he quit drinking, and overall, he has been a better partner. That's why I stayed. But he also thinks I'm completely irrational for not being able to move past this. Maybe I am. What do you think he was doing between 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. those Tuesdays and Wednesdays? Do you think if I knew the truth I could move past this? Stories number 33. Aita for breaking up with my fiancé and also refusing to speak to my family because they defend her. I, 31M, broke up with my ex-fiancé, 31F, about 6 months ago. I had been with her for 6 years and it was going extremely well. We were due to marry in a few months and I was excited to have children with her. Honestly, I do still love and miss her, but trust is important too, and I don't think I could trust her again. My ex-fiancé was very well loved by my parents and siblings. Anyway, one day my then fiancé thought it would be funny to prank me, so she got one of her work friends, who I had never met, to knock on our door one day, and when I answered the door, this man who she knew from work claimed that he was married to my fiancé. He claimed that he had married her a couple of years before I met her and that she had walked out on him and was now planning to commit bigamy with me. She acted like it was true and pretended to be shocked to see him before they revealed it was a prank. As soon as this was over, I told my now ex-fiancé that it was not funny and I didn't think I could ever trust her again, so I left her the same day. Anyway, my family, who is very fond of her, tried to convince me to get back with her. They were angry with me and accused me of overreacting, and my parents in particular claimed that what she did was funny and I should have just laughed it off. I basically told them all that unless they would accept that I did the right thing and apologies to me, I wouldn't associate with them. This was 6 months ago and I have staunchly refused any attempt from my family to reconnect even though they are upset that I'm not speaking to them. I have continued to maintain that if they want me to forgive them they need to accept that I did not overreact and I would like them to apologize, but they have still refused to do so. So I'm still not speaking to them. Update. Okay, update on this situation. The majority of comments helped me realize I was in the right. I took the advice someone gave me and decided to show my ex and family how it felt. Yesterday as revenge I messaged my ex telling her to meet me at a restaurant and messaged my family telling them the same. When they all arrived I was watching from a distance. My ex looked very excited to see me and when her and my family noticed each other they all looked confused. I messaged them all, "It's not so funny now, is it?" My ex began to cry and my mum went to comfort her. I then left and went home. My siblings later messaged me saying that what I did helped them realize that they were wrong, so I rang them and had a proper civilized chat with them. It seems they may have learned their lesson and I may have sorted things with them. My parents are still furious but hopefully they will come round, especially now that my siblings see my point and will no doubt talk to them. My ex came to my house later that day. She was banging on the door, sobbing and begging to speak to me and saying she loved me. I felt a spark of pity for her. After all, I do still love her, but she has made her bed, she can sleep in it. I ignored her and eventually she left. Today I'm removing all traces of my ex from my life. Anything I have that was a gift from her I will give away. And since there is no time like the present, I'm going to start dating again. There is a girl, F26, at my work who has been pursuing me for a couple of months. I previously haven't felt ready to date again, but like I said, no time like the present. Also I need to properly move on, and the fact is I do feel the same way about this new girl, so I'm going to ask her out when I see her in a couple of hours. Thanks for your support. Further update. I just asked the girl from work and she agreed to give it a go. I'm on my first date with her tonight. Stories number 34. I accidentally started a year-long prank war with a total stranger, and they have no idea it's me. It all started with a simple mistake. I was at a coffee shop, distracted, half awake, and when the barista called out, "Jake," I grabbed the drink without thinking. A few sips in, I realized my mistake, but it was too late. Some poor guy named Jake was probably inside, wondering why his caramel latte had vanished. The next day, I walked in and saw a sign near the register, "If your name is Jake, double-check your order." I should have let it go, but something about it made me laugh, so I decided to keep the joke going. I started leaving cryptic sticky notes around the shop that said things like, "Jake knows," asked the barista in a hushed tone if Jake had been in today, and once even wrote, "Thanks for everything, Jake," on the community chalkboard. Sometimes I'd order under his name and tip extra just to confuse him. Over time, the barista started talking about Jake like he was some kind of local legend, and I have no idea if the real Jake has any clue what's going on. I don't even know who he is. But at this point, I think I'm in too deep. Jake, if you're out there, I'm sorry. But also, are you okay? Stories number 35. Aita for blaming my nephew for using my credit card without my permission. So let me start off with I'm pretty bad at checking the details on my bank statements, but recently something wasn't right. So I went through every single one for the past year, and there were over 100 charges from PlayStation. I only had 4 purchases on my 2 PS accounts in a single year, so I panicked as someone had my CC info. In all, the total charges were around 1,500. I contacted both of my siblings whose kids also have accounts and asked nicely if their kids may have purchased anything using my bank account before I make a dispute. Both said no, so I went ahead and called both PS and my bank. The bank was able to charge back past few months and rest is under investigation. Well, a few days later I get a frantic call from my teenage nephew who says his PS account was perma-banned. I asked him if he was sure he didn't buy anything with a CC after I gave him a several $100 PS gift card for his birthday this summer to spend on stuff. He again denied. So I have his email logins and sure enough, it was purchases he made to his account. All the stuff he plays. Then he starts to say maybe he bought a few items here and there. Now my sister is pissed at me. She says I must have added my CC info to buy him something at some point in time, and it was all my fault he was making purchases from my card. If it were her CC, she'd get an alert. Never that he may have taken my CC info, no. She doesn't want him to lose his account, and said she'll call PS to pay for it all. She said he always asks and she gets alerts and doesn't understand that I didn't, so I shouldn't blame him. I said well he knew he was spending someone else's money, so why is it my fault? And that he stopped asking her for permission to make purchases because no one stopped him. After that she said I was blaming her kid for everything. So Aita here. Stories number 36. My 26F, BF, 28M, slammed on the brakes so hard that I was thrown into the locked seatbelt in response to me commenting on his driving. How to address. My 26F, BF, 28m, of 3.5 years and I were driving down a main road towards a red light. He was accelerating into the red light, so I said, "Why are you accelerating? It's red." In response to this comment, he slammed on the brakes so hard that the car screeched and I was thrown forward. The locked seatbelt caught me. I was not injured by this, but it did scare me. Afterwards, when I spoke to him about it, he said I made him really mad with my driving comment, especially since I had told him not to comment on my own driving the day before, and that we should agree not to comment on each other's driving. I don't think that's totally unreasonable, but I also don't think that his act of slamming on the brakes was appropriate. I am concerned that he thinks it was appropriate. How to address this with him? TLDR, I commented on my boyfriend's driving and, in response, he slammed on the brakes so hard that I was thrown forward into the locked seatbelt. How to address this with him? Edit, thanks to everyone for your comments. I don't think I can respond to all at this stage, but I'll try and answer some of the questions here. The car is my car, I own it but let him drive it. I usually push back on letting drive it at all when I am with him because I think he doesn't treat the car as well as I would like. The comments from him on my driving are about me driving too slowly, hesitating. I was in a scary car accident a few years ago and I've been a very nervous and careful driver since then. I had asked him to stop commenting on my driving because I felt like he was nagging me all day about it. The specific instance where I said to stop was because I was hesitating at a traffic circle and was giving too much space for people to go through ahead of me. The comment that caused him to hit the brakes was my first comment of the car ride. We had literally just gotten in the car and it was the first light. Still, we had had some tension arguments that week leading up to it about other things and I think he was a little annoyed with me already when we got in the car. I won't pretend that I have not made him mad and could have tried harder to avoid that, but I felt that the reaction in slamming the brakes was very extreme. I hear what you all are saying. This confirms what I think I already knew the brake slamming was about. It's hard to imagine a situation where that can be seen as reasonable or safe. He has never done anything else physical with me aside from this car incident, though he does have an explosive temper. I've seen him get physical with other things. He's punched a hole in our wall once over a video game and he smacks cars when we are out running and he sees cars not stop properly at stoplights. I would say he hasn't lost his temper with me much, but when he has I found a bit freaky because he adopts a really intense, teeth clenched, fists clenched sort of thing. He's slammed a fist on the table a few times. Again, never has actually done anything physical. Also, to clarify, he was not slamming on the brakes because of the red light, we were still 50-ish feet from the line where you stop for the light. It was definitely in response to my comment, and he said it was afterwards when he explained that he slammed on the brakes because he was mad. I will look into the resources everyone sent and think about how our dynamic is looking and whether our values align. I am feeling like I need to end it, particularly after reading what everyone has said. Thank you, I appreciate all your thoughts and advice. Edit 2, for the people commenting with generalized, typical women, grievances, it is misogynistic to make generalizations about all women based on one woman's experience. Stories number 37. Aita for pointing out that my boyfriend ordered the most expensive things on the menu. I adore the man I have been dating for 2+ years. He is smart and sensitive and kind. But we have a different relationship with money in that I am fairly frugal and he is not. He has been unemployed for over a year. Before he lost his job, he made more than I did and has been working furiously to get a job ever since. At this point, though, I have significantly more money than he does. I am fine paying for experiences because I would prefer to do things together than apart. As such, I have been mostly picking up the tab when we go out to dinner. Here's where the conflict comes in. The last time we went out, he ordered the most expensive appetizer and entree on the menu. I pointed this out because, although he usually orders more than I do, I'm a vegetarian and don't eat as much as he does, this was more than usual and I was raised that it isn't polite to order the most expensive things when someone else is buying. He became angry and felt that I had been silently judging him for every meal I had taken him out to in the past. He felt as if I was accusing him of taking advantage of me, the idea of which repulsed him. He said he would rather walk home than accept a ride with me. Note, I never said these things, nor do I think them, and I tried multiple times to communicate this to him. I was shocked and hurt that this would be his response. I tried to tell him that I was responding to this specific event and that the only reason I said anything was because I was raised that you simply didn't order the most expensive thing on the menu. He did not believe me and I was in tears by the end of the meal. He said that I knew he was having issues with money and that it was insensitive to point out this behavior while we were at dinner, that if I had an issue, I should have told him later and with more sensitivity. This is not the first time I have said something that I thought was fairly innocuous but provoked an angry response from him. So, Aita for pointing out that he ordered the most expensive things on the menu? At this point, I honestly don't know. I didn't set out to hurt his feelings, but I feel as if I am in my own right to say something. Stories number 38. The real reason Trump wants to cancel USAID, birth control. USAID's website is no longer up. It's scrubbed down to the DNS level. So this information comes from the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. According to USAID's April 2024 Family Planning Overview, see URL link below, they budgeted over $600 million for family planning and reproductive health. Similar to how they vowed to defund Planned Parenthood, the latest move to get rid of USAID is a deliberate and targeted attack on women's body autonomy. This isn't about malaria drugs, AIDS prevention, or anything else, although I'm sure that eliminating those things is a bonus to them. It's about making sure women in developing countries don't have access to condoms, contraceptive implants, and morning-after medications. This will kill people. Losing the AIDS and malaria meds, not to mention neglected tropical disease research, insect repellent impregnated bed netting, and, the list is too long to type, alone is going to result in a body count in the tens of thousands. Add pregnancy-related and STI deaths, and it's going to get ugly in a lot of places. Note, if I am mistaken about any of this, I apologize and welcome any corrections anyone can provide. From the Wayback Machine, Thursday, April 18, 2024. The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, is committed to helping countries meet the family planning and reproductive health needs of their people. Voluntarism and informed choice are guiding principles of our program. We are the world's largest bilateral donor of family planning assistance. The agency's bilateral family planning and reproductive health program budget for FY 2022 is $607.5 million. When USAID launched its family planning program in 1965, fewer than 10% of women in the developing world, excluding China, were using a modern contraceptive method, and the average family size was over 6. Today, in the 41 countries where USAID focuses its support, modern contraceptive prevalence has increased to 34%, and the average family size has dropped to 3.9. In FY 2023, the U.S. International Family Planning Assistance budget is estimated to have reached up to 24.2 million women and couples with contraceptive services and supplies, helping to prevent 14,000 maternal deaths and 8.1 million unintended pregnancies. Stories number 39. I, 32M, was going to propose to my girlfriend, 30F, until she told me she's pregnant. A few days ago, my girlfriend and I celebrated our 3rd anniversary. I was planning on proposing at dinner, had the ring and everything, but the day before she told me she's pregnant. It seems her IUD failed, which is unfortunate, but we are at a position in our lives where we can handle a child, and I'm ready to support her through pregnancy and become a father. We had discussed the possibility of kids in the past, and after discussing this recent revelation we'd be happy to bring this child into the world. I just don't know when I should propose. I'm worried it would seem like a shotgun marriage. Should I try and explain I've been planning on this for months already and that it's not spur of the moment, or should I wait a bit longer? I absolutely intend to marry her, but this could not have been worse timing. It feels like everything has become much more complicated now. Update August 30th, 2019, next day. I was thinking I'd edit the original post, but I decided I'd rather spend the night focused on my fiancé than on Reddit. Since the original post really blew up, I don't think too many people would see an edit, so I'm making a new post instead. I took my lunch break early to be with my girlfriend at the OBGYN visit. The IUD was removed without any problems. It had shifted around, which likely caused it to fail, and the pregnancy is not ectopic. However, a miscarriage is more likely, and if the baby is carried to term, there's a higher chance for complications and defects. It's far from a guarantee, but it's a lot more risky than if it was any other birth control method that failed. I ended up taking the rest of the afternoon off so we could talk through everything together. Eventually we decided we should get out of the house, so we put some leftovers in my lunch bag and went to the park. Normally there is nothing special about eating day-old hoagies in a park, but it really helped us relax. We sat on a blanket at the spot we first met and talked about a lot of things. Eventually the sun began to set and I decided it was time. I started to say I had been planning to do this for a while, and it wasn't because she was pregnant, but she started tearing up and cut me off. She told me she understood, so I skipped the rest of my fluff and asked her to marry me. She said yes, and we spent the next few minutes crying, hugging, and kissing. After we got our emotions under control, she told me she'd seen my post. I knew she used Reddit, but I didn't realize she lurked here, and had been expecting it all evening. She said she would have preferred I proposed at our anniversary dinner. Can't argue with that, but this was still about as lovely as she could have hoped for. Although the shadow of a potentially stormy pregnancy is looming above us, I am still very happy and feel lucky to be with her. We're going to visit our parents this weekend to break the news and get through the mountain of questions they're sure to have. We're not thinking about a wedding ceremony yet, but we'll definitely be getting our marriage license certificate, thanks for pointing out the difference, in the next few months like someone suggested. These past few days have been a roller coaster of emotion. Thanks for helping me get over my worries. Stories number 40. My boyfriend doesn't like sex 25M27F. My boyfriend doesn't like sex and it's frustrating me. He gets hard when I do oral on him or give him a handjob, but as soon as he tries to penetrate me, he starts to get soft. I asked him this morning if he doesn't feel pleasure at all by penetration. He said he feels nothing. I don't know how to deal with that because I didn't even know this type of thing was possible. I do oral on him but he almost never give it back. Last night after I made sure he had an orgasm, he left me hanging in bed. This morning I told him I was still horny and I wanted to come too. He said we already took a shower and were already ready to leave the house, so he wouldn't do it and that he was sorry. He talks like if sex is a dirty thing sometimes or he acts like if he was disgusted by sex. I asked if he likes men. I thought maybe it was the reason. But he said he kissed a guy one time and didn't get horny. He said since the first time he tried to have sex, he couldn't penetrate the girl properly because he got soft and had to fake an orgasm so the girl didn't notice that he got soft. He says he loves me and want to be only with me, he is very jealous too, but I don't know if I can stay in a relationship where sex is almost not existent. TL.dr, my boyfriend gets soft and feels nothing by penetration during sex. He only gets hard and come by oral and handjobs. I'm frustrated in the relationship because I'm a very sexual woman and he can't satisfy my needs. How can I somehow try to improve our sexual life? Stories number 41. Wibta if I move out of our apartment knowing my fiancé and his mom can't afford it without me. Throwaway BC my fiancé follows my main, me, F29, and my, ex. Fiancé, M27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiancé got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple years and then decided to get an MBA which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiancé is from the Midwest and his mom has always wanted him to move back. When he told her he was staying here she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and international. I love my job, I like the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID my office shut down and we all went WFH. After COVID they decided not to reopen this office so I've been 100% WFH since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50-50, so the problem started this past May. Fiancé's mom told him she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher so figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that I didn't really mind her staying with us as I figured it would just be for a couple months over the summer. Since I thought it would only be for a couple months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom and fiancé bought a bed to put in the second bedroom. The problem is she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full-time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on Teams calls. She always asks me to take her places BC she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making fiancé help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down. And I hate having my office shoved in a corner of the bedroom. Back in September I told my fiancé that since it looks like his mom is going to stay a while we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use so finally he said we could do a 50-50 split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation he says he agrees but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mom. And he won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting him mom on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay my part of rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mom aren't able to pay for 1/3 the rent each, there is no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do, but I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the AH for leaving them like this. Update. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, but honestly I just got completely overwhelmed with all the comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kind of harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my STBX and his mom take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed at myself for allowing this to happen and not advocating for myself more. This past weekend I got my STBX alone so we could talk, which was actually harder than it should have been. See, his mom always tries to tag along when we do anything. Going through all the comments everyone left and the PMs people sent really helped me decide how to approach this. And also, brought up a lot of good questions I should have thought of myself. Back to the discussion with the ex, I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mom, not because I thought he would, but I just wanted to be able to tell myself I give him the opportunity. I explained again about how unhappy I am with the situation, how it's affecting my work because of her constant interruptions and just being unhappy and uncomfortable that I'm forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago I was paying the majority of the rent, and being that I make so much more than him, it's really my salary that keeps us all afloat. And I also brought up, again, the way she treats me and talks to me, and he replied the same way he has been. He agrees it's not right how she acts and that it's really uncomfortable for us all. WTF. I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously I would have dropped it there. But this time I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she first moved, and how unfair it was that I'm still paying for half when there are 3 people living there and she is the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same story, she has to conserve money since she doesn't have any income currently. Which brought up the question of where all her stuff went when she moved. What money does she use for incidentals? So evidently, when she got divorced, she asked for the divorce after my ex went off to college. It doesn't sound like her husband ex's dad wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house. Ex didn't have any idea how much that was or how much is left. But until she moved here she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she should not have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much. Other than that, ex didn't have much insight to her finances other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month. And from now on I'm only paying 25%, as some of the commenters pointed out. She has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child. So she should have to pay twice as much, and after I move out I'm not paying for anything else, no utilities, no food, nothing other than rent. I have a pretty idea what his finances are like, and if he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st, but it's not late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the $. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I'll reduce the amount I pay in future months. The only reason I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office and they explained that since X and I signed a single rental agreement together, e.g. one contract we both signed as opposed to 2 contracts we sign individually, we are both responsible for the rent. They don't care who actually pays as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself or together with his mom. But in all likelihood he wouldn't be able to pass the credit check on his own, so I'm kind of stuck. I don't think he'll do anything stupid tough because he's going to need to find someplace to live after this, and a collection on his credit report wouldn't be good. I also told him that I'm going to find someplace to work during the day until I move so she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in-person 9-5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mom, I'm not about to overstay my welcome, so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it I'll get a membership at one of those WeWork kind of places. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files, valuables, and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. He really didn't take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mom. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed I wanted to take care of her as much as him, and he kept saying stuff like, "What about my mom? What am I going to tell her? That's how she is, but we still need to help her," etc. He asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I move out I need some space from him. In a few months when we've both had some time space to process what happened, if we both agree we can talk about the relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward and will set boundaries with his mom. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together. I told him he needs to tell his mom because she's not my responsibility or problem and she'll know something's up when I start moving my stuff out. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend I'm going to start moving things so he doesn't have much time. My friend's current roommate starts a new job in another state on the 3rd, so in reality I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending when she actually leaves. I don't expect him to do anything bad, other than sulk and complain, but if he does something stupid, or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is I'll tell the leasing office his mom moved in, which is prohibited in the lease. Honestly, getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now, so it's a pretty valid threat, I think. Now that I've mentally and emotionally separate myself from him and his mom, I'm looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's going on. If it gets too ugly, I'll find a cheap Airbnb or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So, that's it. I'm leaving and I really don't care how that affects them.